And now another no-brainer money-saving tip from Progressive.
Marcus, what happened?
I was changing my oil and I spilled some on the floor.
Oh, we'll use these $50 bills to wipe it up.
Perfect. Got any more?
Yeah, take a couple hundred.
Stop. Instead of using money, use an old rag. And here's a better tip from Progressive on how not to waste money. Don't pay too much for car insurance. Drivers who switch and save could save hundreds. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Potential savings will vary.
With one of the best savings rates in America, banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. Even easier than choosing Slash to be in your band.
Next up for lead guitar. You're in.
Cool. Yep, even easier than that. And with no fees or minimums on checking and savings accounts, is it even a decision? That's banking reimagined. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank for details. Capital One N.A. member FDIC.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Reach for the sky, boy.
I watched all these other ladder wars since last time we was in there. I've seen the great feats of acrobatics, the grace and the precision, the technicality, people flying through the air. But hey, forget all that. Forget all that, It's man. Going down, baby. War time. Taking them to war, that's what we do.
Hey, brother, hey, Terry Funk ain't wearing no mouthpiece. Hell no, Terry Funk ain't wearing no damn mouthpiece. Bruiser Brody ain't wearing no mouthpiece. Doing your little jujitsu, getting focused and shit. Talking about I'm focused. I'm kicking this bag, I'm focused for my match. Shit, that's where we different, boys. We a different type of people. We ain't got time to be focused. Focused. Shit, we live on a farm. We gotta get shit done. We ain't got time to walk around being focused.
You talk about control your narrative. What's son? How long has it took for you to figure that out? I can't tell you how many times WWE has called us, wanting us to come. WWE offered us deals, next level NXT deals. You know what I told them? I said, man, I can do that landscape. You worried about me controlling my narrative? Come on, man, control your own. How many times you done went up there and tried to become a superstar? That superstar bull. I'm good sitting right here, fighting whoever we got to fight. I never have gone nowhere and I never will go nowhere. I live on this damn farm, ain't nobody taking me out of here. So EC3, you wonder if honor's real? You want to know why I don't shake your hand? I'm gonna put it to you like this. You don't deserve to shake my hand. This hand right here, Mitsuharu Misawa, Samoa Joe, Kensuke Sasaki. I blocked odds with Bryan Danielson, shook his hand. I blocked odds with Tyler Black. All the people I shook hands with all around the world, man. And you want to mosey all in and talk about, hey, Jay, shake my hand. Hell no, I ain't shaking your hand. You don't deserve my damn handshake.
People saying I'm shocked. I can't believe Jay Briscoe won the world championship. What the hell's so shocking, man? I ain't been pinned in over 2 years. I dropped the big man on his big ass pumpkin and got the 3 count. It's simple. It ain't rocket science. It ain't even algebra. It's basic mathematics, man. It's kindergarten. Kindergarten shit, man. 1 + 1 is 2. The grass is green, the sky is blue. Jay Briscoe is the world champion. Never forget it, boy. Blood running all down my face. I mean, open your eyes and all you see is red. Ain't nothing like that in the world. The greatest feeling in the world. Ain't no rush like that, man. Blood all over your face. Ain't a high like that in the entire world. And believe me, I've done a lot of crazy shit. But I'm gonna tell you one thing. When we get to New York City, that high that we get, when we become the seven-time ROH Tag Team Champions in New York City. Boy, I tell you, man, it ain't gonna be nothing like that. Greatest high ever. We out this bitch eating Campbell's Chunky. Huh?
Getting healthy, baby.
Shit, we've been working all damn day. Most time we drinking beer this time of night, this time of the evening. We out this bitch eating Campbell's Chunky. Huh? Shit. Think we ain't taking this shit serious?
Cause we was out picking up their chickens all daggone.
Hey, shit.
Jamin!
Oh, shit. Hey, who the hell you talking to back there? Shit.
You're gonna ruin the whole feed.
Wait, what?
They're not even gonna play this now.
Why? Cause I said the F word?
Yeah.
Hey, shit, we losing 50 playing. You worry about me saying the F word? That shit. Shit, I don't give a damn if they don't play it.
You need to settle down.
I'm going hunting.
Sweet talking of people done ran me out of town. And I drank enough of whiskey to float a battleship around. But I'm leaving this game one step ahead of you. And you will not hear me crying, cause I do not sing the blues. Get back my brothers.
And we are live on the Flagship Podcast. I am Rich. He is Joe. And that was a little tribute to the late, great Jay Briscoe. Hope you guys enjoyed that one. A little long, so thank you for sticking with us. But it's hard to cut. It's hard to find. I went through as many of the Briscoe brothers and usually Jay promos. Not many hit the cutting room floor because I was just like, God, there's gold in every single one. There's just so much gold. And you know, we'll touch on it all here in the next little bit of the show, talking about the life and the career of Jay Briscoe. But man, those promos, like the work is one thing, and their work is exceptional. And just as a working team, they're one of the best tag teams ever, if not the best tag team ever. The longevity that they have, we'll touch on all that. But man, when you just sit down and watch Briscoe Brothers promos for I watched it for 4 hours today. God damn, is that something, man? They're just incredible at that. Just incredible. Just one of a kind. You know, I wrote that article at flagshipatreon.com. Just they don't make them like that anymore. They just don't. But that is it's a little tribute to Jay Briscoe, and we'll do a lot of that here in the first half of the show. So, Joe, how are you? How's it going?
I mean, you apologized for that intro being a little long. I could listen to that for the full 3 hours. I mean,
well, good. It's actually sweet. I'll just play that YouTube video then. Play that playlist and we'll get out of here. It'll be great.
And let's not leave Mark out of this. You know, they're just such compelling and believable promos. And, their promos together that they would film. And I mean, they became the stuff of legend over time. I mean, they were just so great. And Mark every bit is Jay, but Jay had that just intensity. Oh, yeah. We talked about it all the time, because we've had these conversations about the Briscoes and when they'd have a big match or when Jay would have a big match, and that believability and that intensity. And he was one of the last guys around who could really make it feel real. And just the look in his eye and the words, and he came across like a scary motherfucker, and it felt, and he made it feel real and believable in a way that I'm not sure anybody else does in modern wrestling, and there have been others in the past that we've compared Jay Briscoe to, maybe a New Jack or, I know there's others, and I'm just not thinking of them.
Right. I've never been there live for in Stan Hansen's prime, but he's another guy that, comes out in Japan and he's parting the Red Sea because people are just diving out of the way to get away from the guy because he's a maniacal madman or whatever. Sabu, I don't know. Did Sabu have that for you?
It's yes, but it's a different kind of energy. Mm-hmm. It was, Jay Briscoe really made you believe he was going to kill the guy across the ring from him when he got his hands on him.
Right. I wrote in that piece that if you weren't there, if you never saw a live Briscoe Brothers match, it's impossible to describe, but those that saw it and felt it and were there, know it because there was just this palpable energy and nervousness every time they got in the ring. Like, God damn, these guys are going to do something. I don't know what that thing is going to be. I don't know what it is. I just know it's bad for the guys that they're facing. And we all have to be on our toes because we don't know when this action's going to peel out here, when they're going to dive into the crowd, what they're going to do. There was just this weird sort of, I mean, in a good way, weird in a good way. There was just, they came out and it was a different energy. Yes, Eric Stevens and Davey Richards just had a really, really fun match before, but you didn't feel weird. You didn't feel energy. You didn't feel nervous when Eric Stevens and Davey Richards came out to the ring. But when those Briscoe brothers came, when you heard those gunshots, you knew, oh, fuck, man, something's going down. I don't know what it is, but I'm excited and I can't wait to see what it is. And that was awesome.
There was an authenticity and realness to it. There was, this man was not a cartoon. This man didn't come across like he was doing a character, but he was, and that's one thing that I think we've learned, which makes it all the more impressive, what we've learned over the last couple of days and all these testimonials and these amazing words that people are speaking about what a great person this was and how he'd give the shirt off his back, and so many people saying how soft-spoken, and to be able to turn it on and have that believability and make it feel so real and have that intensity and make it feel like he was going to kill that guy across the ring and how he was coming to a fight. His promos, this is going to sound weird, they were almost too good in a way, because then there were times where I would watch Jay Briscoe wrestle and it would be disappointing that he was selling, like based on the intensity of the promos and what you expect from him. And then he'd get whipped into the ropes or sell. And it's like, his promos were almost too good because you don't expect that kind of bullshit from Jay Briscoe. Man, he just, and Rich, it was June 3rd, 2015, when I sent that tweet that said, people are going to watch Jay Briscoe tapes in 100 years and wonder why he isn't considered an all-time great. And that was almost 8 years ago that I sent that tweet. And I absolutely believed that by 2015, he was one of the greatest pro wrestlers to ever walk this planet. And all he's done since then is 8 more years of still being great. And last year proved that. And there were years where the Briscoes were kind of lower profile. Ring of Honor may have been struggling. And there were times where we talked about, are the Briscoes done? Is this it? And I think 2022 answered that question for us. Could they do physically what they did when they were 25 years old? No. But did they master all of the other aspects of pro wrestling with maybe some slight decline in athletic ability? Yeah, they did. And I don't know how you could watch those FTR matches last year and not think that these guys may have been peaking 21, 22 years in. Even 8 years ago, I considered this guy and all. And I don't know if, you ask people to name the all-time greatest wrestlers, it might take them a while to get to Jay Briscoe. And that's bullshit, because I truly believe he's one of the greatest to ever do it. And we've talked about that before. This is not a new conversation on this show or between me and you and to our audience. But I think it's time that we put him in that same class with his promos. Rich, if you transported this guy to the territory era with these promos, he'd have been a millionaire in 1983. I mean, he's just a total package. He could do it all. Babyface, heel, obviously tag team, promos, violence, high flying, making it look authentic. There's an authenticity to this guy that he was able to channel that so many couldn't. And it's as far as the tag team, again, let's not leave Mark out of this. As far as the tag team, And we've had this, it's so funny because we had this discussion almost 10 years ago. 7, 8, 9, 10, however long ago it was, we had this discussion as to whether they were the greatest in-ring tag team of all time. And all they did was add almost another decade to that in terms of longevity and output. And there's a real argument that they are the greatest tag team of all time. And man, it feels like they would have had another 10 years in front of them. So, as far as Jay Briscoe, the performer, I mean, just about peerless when you take it all into consideration. I mean, I really believe he was that great.
Yeah.
And that's an 8-year-old opinion. I mean, you'd watch Jay Briscoe wrestle, and we'd listen, me, like you, and maybe a lot of other people listening to this, we'd fall out in and out of Ring of Honor. There's times where that company wasn't all that interesting. And then you'd watch and you'd see a Jay Briscoe match, and he would just instantly remind you how great he was. And you'd be like, I am watching one of the greatest pro wrestlers to ever walk this earth. That's how I always felt watching him. That's what precipitated that. That's what motivated me to make that tweet in 2015. People could probably look up the match and see which match spurred it on. But I mean, as a performer, it cannot be overstated. And these aren't new conversations here.
No, it's something that we've discussed for years and years and years, like you said. And I think that point that you last brought up is a great one, because there would be times where I'd be out of Ring of Honor, or I'd be indifferent about it or whatever, but then something would grab me back, and that something was usually a Jay Briscoe promo or a Jay Briscoe match or whatever. And two examples that I thought of right when you were describing that. One of them you heard in that intro, where he's talking about, you don't get to shake my damn hand or whatever. He's talking about EC3 because he faced him on the 19th anniversary show. And that was in the midst of the pandemic, when in March of 2021, Ring of Honor still running their shows and filming all their shows in that random event center in Baltimore or whatever. No one's there. They're empty arena shows or whatever. We always talked about how Ring of Honor did it great. Ring of Honor was probably the best in terms of how to handle the pandemic, in terms of wrestler safety and taking the wrestlers' families and lives and stuff, into consideration. The flip side of that was it probably destroyed their business, because they paid people for months, didn't run anything, were super careful, super particular about everything they did, and it killed my interest, because it was like, I don't really want to watch these empty arena Ring of Honor shows. They felt like death. They felt like there was just nothing to them. And then I remember watching that EC3 promo that Jay Briscoe cut, and I was like, motherfucker, he did it again. Like, I gotta watch this show. It's the 19th anniversary. It's Ring of Honor. Like, I've been with it since day one. Who am I to not watch this show? Come on, get into it. And I remember that one got me, because that promo is spectacular. If you've never heard it, I was able to find it pretty easily, but I was looking through a bunch of different places or whatever. But EC3 Jay Briscoe, probably the best way to look at 19th anniversary show Jay Briscoe. That's how you can find it, because I even had to clip some parts of it out, because it's even longer than that. That's a great one. And then also the one that came to my mind again, where, falling out of Ring of Honor, and it also kind of pertains to the pandemic as well, was the Briscoe brothers match in the farm with Papa Briscoe.
Farm fight.
The farm fight. And it's like, you and I are both, we're on record as saying the cinematic matches can hit the fucking bricks. You know what I mean? I got no time for people saying, the Bray Wyatt thing, John Cena's in the NWO shirt because he turned heel. Okay, I got it. I don't care. The Broken Universe stuff hit the bricks. And if you don't think so, go back and listen to the shows we did when those things were happening. We are very consistent that those cinematic matches and all that shit, no time for it. So when I heard that these guys were going to have a quote unquote cinematic match, I was a little like, I don't know. I'm kind of over these. Yeah, it's the pandemic. I know there's not a whole lot of things you can do. So, okay, fine, whatever. Then you watch these promos and you're like, all right. Then you watch it's fucking spectacular. It's great. That is so far and away the best fully out of the ring cinematic, whatever the hell you want to call it, whatever you want to classify those types of matches, blows away Undertaker and AJ Styles, blows away Bray Wyatt and John Cena, blows away the freaking swamp match between Braun and Bray, blows away all the Broken Universe stuff, just blows all those things away. That match is spectacular. I don't even know if it's a match. I don't know what we were watching, but it didn't matter because those guys, they talked into the building and then it happened and it was awesome. And it
was exactly what they called it, the fight on the farm.
Just these two fucking brothers and the dad saying, all right, you guys are going to have to settle it in the farm. And like I'm sure he said numerous times, I'm sure that's not the first time that he said, all right, guys, fucking fight each other and settle this. And then after, and the match is over and they just fist bump and it's on. And they move on with their lives and they're all good. They're all good afterwards. And it's perfect. It's just so perfect. And that match spoke to exactly and you mentioned the authenticity of the Briscoes, in particular Jay Briscoe, but Mark right with him as well. And I think that's why this wrestling death is hitting me harder than it's hit pretty much any other wrestling death, because, and you touched on this on the Thursday Dynamite review that's up at flagshippatreon.com right now as well, is we'll come on to these shows, and when a major wrestling figure dies, we'll do our tribute show, and that's fine. Like, I enjoy doing them. I kind of like doing them. I don't like the fact that somebody died, and that's why we're doing them, but it helps us kind of educate. It helps me learn a little bit more about these wrestlers. It's hopefully there's somebody listening that's never heard of this guy or is looking for matches or whatever. I kind of find them,
and it's nice to recognize their careers.
Right. I find it like a fun little challenge of like, okay, well now I got to, today and tomorrow I'm doing research on X. Like today and tomorrow I'm digging into Kamala. I'm digging into, Corporal Kirshner or whatever. Like, I don't see it as like, some people get really sad about every wrestler death. I don't mean to be like cold or calculated or whatever, but I don't necessarily know if I feel that same way about it. And even growing up, like, I don't know that Eddie Guerrero or Chris Benoit hit me like it hit a lot of other people. Like the Chris Benoit one was more just like, holy fuck. Like, it made me not want to watch wrestling for a little while just because I wasn't sad or I was just kind of like weird. It just felt very different. And I stopped watching wrestling for a couple months afterwards because I was just like, I just need a break from this thing. This thing is weird, but it didn't hit me on that emotional level. And there's been numerous wrestler deaths that have happened over the last 10 years of us doing the show or whatever. And I've been at dinner or whatever when I've gotten a text about a wrestler dying. And it's always just kind of, I look down, I'll tell, the nurse, yeah, this wrestler died or whatever. This time I looked at my phone and I didn't say anything for like 5 minutes. And the nurse looks up and she's like, are you okay? What's wrong or whatever? And she's like, why are you being weird? Or like, what's up with you? And I just couldn't, I was like paralyzed. And I've never felt that way about a wrestler death before. I've never felt that same connection. And I think it's a few different things. And I know that you kind of had similar thoughts. And I think a lot of other people, have kind of echoed these similar thoughts as well. On one hand, I think has to be, and maybe I'm not thinking of somebody, but he has to be, or at least, he's on a level among pretty much on his own of people that I've watched their entire careers. Like I watched his entire career, from the first match he had in Ring of Honor in 2002 until his final match. I watched it all over those 20 years. I've seen the guy live more times than I could possibly count. I go into Ring of Honor shows, being there live. I've seen the guy a ton of times, but I've watched all of his career, all of it. I've seen it in totality. So I think it hits a little different from that standpoint of, this is a guy that I saw when he was 18. And now I'm seeing him pass away at 38 with a family, and the whole time I've grown with him. I'm not that much different in age. I'm just 2 years younger than he is. So I think that hits a little different than when I'm 26 and some guy that's 55 dies. It's like, it's also the being 38, the tragedy of it, that sort of stuff. But I think this is a little different too, because there's also that authenticity that you get with the Briscoes, that I think we all felt like we knew them a little bit more than we did insert wrestler X. Their promos were always cut at their house on the chicken farm. They talked about their lives. In one of the videos I talked about there, his wife, Jay Briscoe's wife, is yelling at him. You can't say fuck, they're not going to air it. And he goes, oh, because I said fuck that shit. You know what I mean? Like, and it kind of broke down those wrestler fan barriers a little bit, but at the end of the day, they still were performers. And like we see with Jay, he was still playing a character to a lesser extent. Mark, have you ever met Mark outside of a wrestling?
I never met either one of them.
Okay. Mark is Mark. That's all I'll say. Like the Mark Briscoe you get is the Mark Briscoe. Like, that's the best way I can. I only met them like one or two times outside of like an actual wrestling event or whatever. And Jay is exactly as people describe. He is one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. A down to earth guy. He still has that energy about him. He still has that badass energy about him. But he's not He's not a maniac. Mark, I don't know. Mark is Mark. Like when I met, I was like, yeah, that's okay. There's not a whole lot of,
he could have still been on because you're a civilian. You ever think of that? You know what I mean? Some wrestlers are like.
But people have said, if you hear any of the discussions when they talk about Jay, like nobody says, well, yeah, Mark was. That's always like, well, Jay was so much nicer than people thought. Of Mark, it's like, yeah, well, Mark's Mark. So I don't know. I love it. I love it. It's great. But there was that authenticity that they have that a lot of other people don't. So when you hear that news that he passes away, it felt like you were a part of that family a little bit more than any other wrestlers. Insert wrestler X here. You're a fan of their matches. You're a fan of their promos. Maybe you bought a T-shirt from them once. Maybe you shook their hand at a table. But we saw all of it from the Briscoes. You know what I mean? We all lived through we lived from them being 18 years old, starting out, to where they are now with full giant families. We know their dad. We know where they're from. We know what their chicken farm looks like. We know what kind of cars they drive. We know everything about these guys because they let us in that entire time. Their entire careers, they let us in. And that just was done in such a way that I think that's a big part of why it hit me different than it hit a lot of other wrestler deaths. Is like, God damn, it feels like a part of all of our wrestling fans, people that followed the Briscoes, followed Ring of Honor. It felt like one of our own in a way, more so than a lot of other wrestlers felt. And I think that hit me. I think the age hit me. The family aspect hit me. It was just, everything came together. And I've never felt that way about a wrestler death before. And I don't know that I'm going to feel that way about a wrestler death again, the way I felt during this. Cause I don't get that emotional. I don't get that. It's just like, all right, that's a part of the game, whatever, like move on. This one was different. This one just, it rattled me. I felt like shit for like 48 hours afterwards. I still, even before, honestly, that intro, listening to the intro, I was smiling and laughing. And as people in the chat room were going nuts, that was the first time I felt like, you know what? This is going to be fun. I'm going to enjoy, reliving some of these memories and maybe smile a little bit because I've just been in a funk. I've just been in a cloud ever since. And that doesn't happen with wrestler deaths ever.
Yeah. I mean, it hit me on a different level when I thought about his family, and I talked about that on my Dynamite review today. And I didn't expect to lose it, but I did. I could not hold it together. Because I just, I think about those two little girls and
it's still awful. Yeah. That
and what they may have witnessed and the one that may not ever walk, the other one in rough shape, and I hear she's doing better, the younger one. And the son, that poor kid, I mean, he might feel guilt for, the old survivor's guilt, or it could have been him in the car. And that wife, that's without her husband, and it just makes me think about if something ever happened to me and leaving Brittany alone, So that's why I kind of lost it behind the paywall, and because that's why this one hit me different too. I just thought about it from that aspect, and and then everything else on top of that, and it's just terrible because I think about mortality a lot, my own mortality and all those things, and just when you hear the way people talk about him, and you feel the weight of the words and the heart, it's the way people talk about him is just a little different, and if there's any sort of consciousness or anything post-death, or he'd care way less about the fact that he's not alive, and he'd be way more concerned with that little girl who can't walk,
Oh, for sure. He'd give up anything
and
to let her walk again or feel better or whatever. Yeah, for sure.
And you just think about stuff like that, and then it'd be the same for me. And it's just I feel so much for that for his wife left behind with this and those kids. And that's where it really hit me different than these. And I talked through this on the other audio I did, and I'm not going to do it all over again. And, but that's where it really hit me different. And, I think also a lot of the things you said, but also why this one might be a little harder for some people is I wrote about this a little bit somewhere, maybe on our Discord, and I'm going to try to paraphrase what I had to say there. But, I think in a lot of ways that this industry as a whole failed him. We all know the tweets, which, by the way, are almost a decade old. And look, it's very obvious to me that today, whether you believe that was him then or not, that wasn't him today. I mean, yeah, he apologized multiple times and he donated pay and all of that. And all of his peers backed him. Then they back him today. And what really strikes me is all of his peers from the the LGBTQ community who have spoken about him and have backed him. And those people didn't have to say anything, but they knew the real Jay Briscoe and they did speak. And again, the weight of their words. If you go read some of those messages, these aren't boilerplate rest in peace messages. These are people who had a connection with him.
You have to read them. And that's the thing. You have to read them. They're not just R.I.P. Jay Briscoe, 1963 to,
You could feel the heart behind what these people are saying. And I'm not going to
long. There's notes apps. It's pictures of him with them. It's not just RIP, we lost a good one today, and that doesn't mean that I'm not taking away anything, from people but people feel compelled, and people have felt compelled over the last 2 days to just write these long tweet threads and notes apps and stuff. And that speaks to it too, that they can't wrap up their emotions or their thoughts on Jay Briscoe in one line and say, you'll be missed, man up, heart, RIP.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that. None of them are that. They're long. They're paragraphs. They're about, hey, this time he did this, or I'll always remember when he did blank, or unforgettable moments doing blank. Like, they're all, like you said, they're all from the heart. They're all with the chest. He's everybody's saying it from the chest.
Feel the weight,
Right.
weight. And to me, it's the ones from his gay peers. And I'm not going to run them all down like a checklist of the gays. We've all seen them. We know who the people are. The tweets are out there. But, I cannot, you can feel the heart for what these people are saying, and I cannot buy that this was a hateful man. I just cannot. And, the people I trust who did know him tell me the same. And he absolutely should have been given more chances. And I know that Tony Khan tried his best. And it's just, what's even more sad about it is you really get the sense that with the new Ring of Honor and everything, that he was really on the cusp of maybe the most financially lucrative period of his career and the most high profile run of his career, right on the precipice of that. But it shouldn't have taken this long, and it should have come years earlier. And maybe a lot of this is hitting me harder too, because on my, much smaller, much less significant level that I can relate to him in that way. But, and I know it was the network standing in the way and in this particular instance, but, we gotta do a better job forgiving people and letting people show you who they really are. We have to do a better job at that, because if we don't, then what's the point?
Yeah.
What's the point of any of this? What's the point? Listen, we have to try to be more understanding, because then what's the point of even apologizing? What's the point of learning? What's the point of growing? What's the point of trying to be a better person if we're just going to throw people in the trash when they make a mistake?
Yeah, we're going to ostracize them and paint them with the scarlet letter, and they can never get it off, never get rid of it. Always have that millstone around their neck the rest of their life.
So then what's the point of any of this? And this is not a cancel culture rant. Okay, please. That's not what this is. And look, here's the big thing too. You want to be a skeptic when it comes to apologies. You want to be a skeptic when it comes to public comments. You think that people like Jay Briscoe or Jay Briscoe himself in 2013, that you just apologize and say things and donate money to save their own ass. Listen, you could be skeptical of that stuff all day long. Okay, I get it. I'm going to tell you though, what's real and what cannot be faked. The words these people have written about him, the things these people have said about him, the people who knew him, and the things that they're saying over the last couple of days. And again, in particular, the people in that LGBTQ community who, Rich, they could simply say nothing. But read the words and the heart and the weight behind those words. And I feel like that's why this one hurts a little more too, because I think this guy got a raw deal. I think the industry as a whole failed him. And it really, it's so frustrating because I feel like he was right on the precipice of completing the arc.
Yeah.
Right on the precipice of completing the redemption and coming all the way back. And now he doesn't get the chance, and on top of everything else, it's just sad. And I just would plead to people, culturally, we went through a period where, a lot of Band-Aids had to be ripped off and a lot of things happened for the better. But I think it's time we start to reevaluate how we handle these things. And we got to give people a chance, man. And we got to try to be more understanding. And we got to be able to forgive and put ourselves out there and be willing to be burned, quite honestly, and let people show us who they are. Otherwise, again, there's no point to any of this. There's no point. I don't know if I'm making any sense.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I wrote about that too, and I talked to a few people in the community about it as well. Of just like, and every single one of them, 100%, every single one said like, after that, every time I saw Jay, he would go out of his way to say, hey, just again, I apologize, and I've learned this, and I understand how stupid that was and how dumb I was, and if I ever do anything like that, call me out again, teach me, let me know. I want to learn. I want to be better. I will do anything I can to be better educated. I have no problem discussing it. I have no problem just, how did it affect you? Like the back and forth too, not just the, hey, I'm going to give you my apologies and then I'm out. Like, hey, how did that affect you? I'm sorry. Why did that affect you? That's sort of 100% of them all had those exact same words about their conversations, their run-ins with Jay. And you guys read some of those over the last couple of days that have come out. And again, like, when those sort of people are telling you, hey, this guy made a mistake, but he's better for it, and he's learned, and he's grown, it's okay. It's okay to listen to those people. It's especially the people in that community that are saying, hey, I talked to the guy. I know the guy. We've discussed it. We've hashed it out. He's cool. Like, don't give him that peace. Let him have that peace. You can take the millstone off, and a lot of people just never did. And he died, with that piece never being there.
And maybe it's because he just did his shit privately and he didn't broadcast it to the world, and he didn't try to get roses thrown at him. Maybe that's another piece of this. If you do remember, he did publicly apologize, and they took the Ring of Honor title off of him, and he talked about the donate. He did that, but at that time, it wasn't good enough, and it wasn't good enough for most people. At that time, maybe you had a right to be skeptical.
Sure.
That's fine. Sometimes these things do take time. But again, you could be skeptical of that. You could get out your little red pen, your little red apology pen that people love to do when people are up there trying to make amends and make things better. And maybe, not everybody knows how to apologize the approved internet way. And we all see that then they get raked through the coals again, and it's horseshit. And, you want to be skeptical of him in 2013 and what he had to say. But as I said, what's authentic and what cannot be denied and what clearly came through in the last 2 days is I don't see how anyone can believe that this man had hatred in his heart after seeing what all these people had to say about him. I cannot buy it. I can't. And to me, it's very obvious that he had redeemed himself with the people who knew him, which means in a lot of ways, this industry ultimately failed him. And that's what's sad about this too. Even up until yesterday when, according to Dave Meltzer, the network would not allow a full-on tribute for this man. Yet, 2 hours later, they'll trot Dana White on TV saying verbatim, sometimes it just feels good to slap somebody.
Right.
So you try to weigh those morals. I don't get it, man.
Well,
I don't get it.
One guy will make them more money than the other guy.
I just don't
there's
get
a risk
it,
assessment, and it's a financial risk assessment for someone.
And it pisses me, it pisses me off.
Yeah.
It's
trash.
It's not right. But I don't know. But anyway, you hope that the older daughter, who doctors don't know if she'll walk again, you hope that it all turns out all right for her and she is able to walk, and you hope it works out for that family. You think, but it seems like they're all very close and they'll have tons of support, and you worry about Mark. No one's talking about Mark.
I didn't want to interrupt when you were talking about his family, but I've thought about Mark a lot because this isn't just his brother.
I don't know if Mark wants to keep doing this. Right. Who knows if Mark wants to keep doing this. And, they never wanted to separate, because Mark never did anything wrong, and I think that gets lost in this a lot. And he often got lumped in with Jay, but Mark never made any kind of tweets like that or had any kind of controversies or anything. And, and I'm sure at some point they could have done their own things and I don't know if maybe, who knows if he could, and I'm sure he's not even about that yet. And that poor guy, his birthday was the next day. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you saw that.
I did. Yeah, it's awful.
So forever he's gonna associate his birthday with his brother's death, and I'm sure he hasn't even thought about it, but maybe he won't want to wrestle anymore, and honestly, I think about Mark, and Mark has 7, 8, 9 kids or something like that. So you think about all those nieces and nephews and we learned so much. I did anyway. I learned so much about this family over the last 2 days and how their father was a football coach in town and how their mother was on the school board.
Right.
Briscoe brother, and how
school shut
Jay's
down.
Wife. Yeah, because Jay's wife also worked at the school. Jay was a assistant coach at the junior high. I mean, these were people who were in the community and loved. And like you said, they shut down the school, the school system, and it gives you a whole new perspective on who they were. And again, circling back to the top in terms of his professional life, it really makes his performances, in particular his promos, even all the more impressive because he wasn't that raging maniac, but he was able to channel that and make it feel real and make it feel authentic. And I'm sure if you crossed the man, that would have came out of him. He knew how to come across like a scary motherfucker, and I've often said, like, he's one of the few wrestlers today, maybe the only one where I'd be terrified if he cut a promo on me. I just,
those eyes, those eyes always got you.
And the words and just the complete 0% bullshit, 0% bullshit in those words. I love quoting Abdul James' line about Don Mattingly. 100% ball player, 0% bullshit. Jay Briscoe, 100% wrestler, 0% bullshit. You know, and the more you learn about the family and the more you learn about him, guy's just raising a family like everybody else. Nice guy, nice family. They're all doing things the right way. They work hard. And sometimes just the shittiest things happen to the wrong people, 38 years old, young kids. Just a different perspective on this one. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw that, the day he died, like a couple hours before, he sent out a picture. He was in his backyard or whatever, and he just like God is showing off or something like that or whatever. No, I'm not a religious guy, obviously.
The rainbow over the pool.
But even take out the God. If you don't, the God aspect isn't it? It's just the peace and tranquility of my backyard. This guy that's worked his ass off on this chicken farm while also being a pro wrestler or whatever. And there's this beautiful backyard with a pool and a basketball hoop and chairs and all this sort of stuff and a rainbow coming across of it. And then a couple hours later, he dies. You know what I mean? And that pool will never be, it'll never feel that. That entire family will never be there to enjoy all those things ever again. And that fucking sucks. That just guts you when you see that. Like when I saw it, it was like, oh, okay, well, you know what? The guy accomplished everything he could possibly accomplish. So that's, that makes you feel good, but then you're just gutted thinking that will never be the same again. That image, that photo, that is just never again. And that just sucks. And it just, I'm not, I know you are somebody who thinks about your own mortality. I don't usually, but days like that and a picture like that and what's gone on over the last 4 days has made me think about that a lot too. And I'm not usually that way. So it's tough. It's really, really tough. So, I want to do, at least before we transition to something else, talk about the good aspects of the Briscoes and what we can kind of learn from this. And in terms of wrestlers, if you're thinking this week, all right, once I kind of feel all right and I want to just start watching some of these guys, or maybe you're listening to this and going, man, I never knew the Briscoes were that good. You guys are saying they're one of the best tag teams ever. Is that really true? Fuck yeah, it is. Are you kidding? There is so much stuff
Rich,
to watch.
Somebody asked me yesterday. I got a text message yesterday from someone that said, I watched the FTR matches. What else should I watch from, Jay Briscoe's career? And I thought about it for a second and I texted back all of it.
Yeah, his career. Just watch his career.
Everything. He's just great. I couldn't. It's not even a matter of not being able to narrow down. They were just, he and they were just always great when they were young guys just doing insane shit. And then the early run in Noah, and then obviously the whole Ring of Honor run, the early part of the Ring of Honor run, and then the later part of the Ring of Honor run where they're, where they've really fully fleshed out their personas and a lot of similar, these promos that you played at the top, and the Jay Briscoe singles run, where they pushed him to the top as a singles guy, and he was, a world champion twice. And unfortunately, it came right around the time where he had his controversies with the tweets, so he had to take the title off him. Those singles matches are incredible. It's just a 20-plus year body of work, particularly with the tag team, but do not sell the singles work short either. He was a great singles wrestler that, quite honestly, might be unmatched historically in terms of they might be the greatest tag team of all time. And this is not the death talk. And I mean, Rich, we've had these conversations of how we went through and tried to find teams. They're peerless in terms of longevity, and they were peerless 8 years ago.
Right. The only one we came up with, the only one that we talked about in ring wise that matched them was the Young Bucks. And at the time, now both those guys have, both those teams have continued to add to the resume over the years. But the Briscoes have a head start by a lot of years from these guys. So the Young Bucks might catch up now over the next, decade or whatever. But goddamn, in 2015 to today, the Young Bucks can't catch up because the Briscoes are still going and they're reaching higher highs than they've ever reached. And they have a couple year head start. So it's unmatched. I mean, I ran the numbers, looking at cage match ratings for the piece that I wrote at flagshippatreon.com. And of all the Briscoe brothers matches with a 9+ rating on cage match, you have matches from 2002, 2008, 2007, and 2004. Those are elite. 9+ is the elite of the elite. Some of the best matches of all time. You have 4 different years there with multiple matches in those 4 years. 2007, one of their best years, and obviously 2022, one of their best years ever. We'll talk about that here in a moment as well. You extend that to 8+. 8+ cage match rating, yeah, that's a really, really fucking good match, right? You now add 2021, 2019, 2018, 2017, 2016, 2015, 2011, 2010, 2006, and 2003. Nobody has that body of work, of that longevity and that sustained greatness. Nobody. You're never going to find a team for nearly 20 years that was good the entire time. And guess what's happening in between some of those years, particularly between 2011 and 2015? Jay Briscoe's having great singles matches during those times. 2012, 2013, and 2014, he's having great main event level singles matches in that exact same period as well. So it's just, you talk about Jay specifically, but that team, I mean, they're just unmatched in terms of the longevity of being as good as they've been for as long as they've been. From the first time I saw that guy in 2002 until the final match that we all saw in Ring of Honor, just great, just sustained greatness that I don't think many people can match. I don't think a team can match it, and I'm not sure any other individuals can match that sort of longevity.
I mean, if we're just talking about the wrestling, it just bothers me so much that all of their peers eventually got to do it on true national television. It's I think that Jay Briscoe would be viewed a lot differently in an alternate universe where he got the same opportunity to do it on that kind of stage. I truly believe he's one of the greatest of all time. And I've believed it for a number of years, and I don't know, how many. I don't know if I can name 20 guys who were better than him at this. And as you just laid out as a tag team, if you're going to consider longevity, because you look at some of the other great teams, and we did a whole show on this years ago. Even if you combine both versions of the Midnight Express, what are you talking about? 7-8 years or something like that? Right. I don't even think it's 10
at most. Yeah, I don't even know. Yeah, it's definitely not 10.
And that's 2 different teams. No, because like 83 to they didn't go to 93,
right?
Like 83 to 90 or something like that.
That's a long time.
That's a long.
You put that into context. Like 1983 wrestling to 1993 wrestling is a very long time. That's a hell of a time. These motherfuckers from 2002 to 2022. I mean, think about how different wrestling is in that period.
Yeah. And again, that's 2 different teams. That's not even one team.
right.
That's swapping out Stan Lane for Dennis Condrey. And, the Young Bucks, the discussion really is the Briscoes versus the Young Bucks. And, they've had their share of classic matches together and great matches together. But those are the 2 teams. And you really struggle to find anyone else to enter the conversation. Rock and Roll Express, okay, but that was on and off. They had times where they didn't get along. They had times where they didn't, wrestle together much. And now, it's great that they're still going, but they're obviously, older guys. So I don't know. I don't think so. Road Warriors, how long were they together? Probably not 10 consecutive years. Again, with them, maybe about 10 years. So 83 to about 90, 2-ish?
92 is when it kind of all fell apart. And
let's say 10 years, because it was about 10 years. That's fair. But that's half the time. And not nearly the quality, even though, the Road Warriors were great in their own, distinctive way. But again, when you throw in the longevity aspect of it, I mean, these guys, they just cannot be touched. And they were, and the shame of it is they'd still be going. And I really believe they had a lot more in front of them and quite possibly, you have to think the most high profile run of their career was in front of them. It was finally in front for Jay Briscoe. It was finally, he was on the precipice of it. Finally. And then this happens. And he and as I said earlier, he doesn't complete the arc. And it's sad. That aspect of it is sad too. It sucks. This all sucks. The whole thing sucks. And we'll see what happens with Mark. If Mark wants to keep doing this, I don't think anyone would be opposed to him winning that ROH World title with a Jay Driller in the center of the ring. That's just silly wrestling, but sometimes the obvious story is the right story, and you just do it. I can't think of anything more obvious than that.
No, yeah, I've had a tough time even thinking about that, because it's like, man, this dude just lost his brother, his best friend, his coworker, you know what I mean? It's just like, I don't know. Who knows? If the guy wants to wrestle again, great. But I can't even imagine him thinking about that for even a second over the last couple of days.
I'm sure he hasn't. And could you imagine the first time he steps in a ring without his brother? Could you imagine the first time he steps in that ring without his brother?
I don't know.
Have any two people been more synonymous with each other, and throw in the fact that they're family and less than a year apart in age, by a few days, with Mark Briscoe being born on the 18th or whatever, and Jay's birthday on the 23rd, so by 360 days apart in age, and which again reminds me of my kids. It's kind of the same deal. It's just all, it's terrible, and I don't want to do that thing where you compare deaths. It's all terrible, but this one it did affect me different. It really did.
And I did tweet this out. Usually, obviously, don't use our Twitter very much anymore, but I did tweet this out, and I mentioned it in my piece as well. And I just wanted to make it clear to everybody. And I never like spoiling our match of the year thing. I never like doing that. I always like telling people I'm not going to. People ask me, come on, you can tell me who's. I'm never telling you who's going to finish first. Until we release those results, I'm not telling anybody anything. I know, and one other person knows the results of match of the year. Until it goes live, nobody else knows. Not a single other soul knows that. But when I heard about the news and I looked at the results of what had come in so far after 135, I think, ballots or so, which hopefully we are going to set yet another record again in 2022 here with the 2022 match of the year. There was no chance that this match wasn't going to finish first, and I just wanted to make it clear to everybody that it wasn't just because all of a sudden now a bunch of people said, hell, I got to vote for these guys. No. These guys are going to win the 2022 match of the year, their dog collar match with the FTR. They're going to win this not because Jay died, not because of any tragedy, because they had one of the best fucking matches of all time. They were 400 points in front of everybody else 20 minutes after, when I heard about the Jay news, that's where they were. They were so far ahead of everybody else. And now that's probably going to get farther. And I don't know what's going to happen with the other matches or whatever. I will say the Supercard of Honor match was, when that news came out, a couple of points away from number 2. It might be there now. I haven't checked in a couple days. But these guys are going to, and I just wanted to make it clear to people that it's not a death bump thing, because there's nothing, I'm not taking anything against that. Like, there's no problem with that. Like, if a bunch of people just decide, you know what, fuck it, this match takes on a little, but there's always that weird, there's a caveat to it to some people of, okay, well, people rallied behind this match because no, nothing. Because this match was fucking great. Because this is one of the greatest matches ever. Because this was clearly the match of the year in 2022. That's why that match is going to win match of the year. Not because of Jay's death, not because of anything else. That match was going to win before he died, and it's going to win after he dies too. I just wanted to make that clear to people, just in case, because there's probably going to be a situation where they're probably going to go into the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame this year or next year or whatever. And it's bullshit, because they probably should have been there years ago. They should have been on the ballot years ago. But they might go in now, and there'll always be that little bit of after Jay's death, then no, I mean, these guys should go in the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame because they're one of the best fucking tag teams ever. They should go in the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame because Jay's an incredible wrestler and Mark's an incredible wrestler, and they deserve it. And I just want to make it clear to everybody that they won their match of the year this year because that match on its own merits, not because of anything else, not because he died, not because of any tragedy, not because a bunch of people felt bad or felt compelled to now vote for him. No, that thing was going to win no matter what. And I found that cathartic's probably not the right, I don't know what I felt, but I just wanted to make it clear to everybody that no, these guys earned it. And that's in what they had one more match afterwards, but in what will be the last high profile match of the Briscoe brothers and the last high profile match of Jay Briscoe. And that's, I don't know how to describe that, but it's equal parts really cool that he goes out like that with having one of the best matches ever and having the match of the year, whatever. But it's also a tragedy too, because like you said, it felt like that was the beginning of what was going to be their perhaps their biggest run, their final run or whatever. And it all got taken away. They never are going to be able to complete that arc. Jay will never be able to find that piece and complete that arc of doing it on the biggest stages. And that sucks. It absolutely sucks. So it's comforting and annoying. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel awful at the same time. So I don't know. That's kind of how these 48 hours have gone, pretty much. So I don't know.
I saw that guy wrestle so many times. Obviously going to all those Ring of Honor shows all those years and everything. And, sometimes you have wrestling memories burned in your head that you can just replay like a DVR. You can see it in your mind's eye, right? And I obviously, like anybody else, have a bunch of those. One of them for me, and I have photographic memory of this, is on February 25th, 2006, on the 4th anniversary show, the Ring of Honor 4th anniversary show in Edison, New Jersey. And that was the show where the Briscoes returned to the company. Remember, they left for a little while. And it was a 3-way match with Sal Rinauro and Tony Mamaluke and Jason Blade and Kid McCausey. And they got introduced last, the Briscoes, and their music hits and the place just comes unglued, right? Because they were unannounced and it was their big return to the company. And I will always remember their entrance that night, stalking around the ring and just soaking it all in. And the energy for their return that night. And that's one of those wrestling memories that's a little bit different that will always stick with me, right along with watching Okada pose in Madison Square Garden after he won the title from Jay White at Supercard of Honor, or, a bunch of memories from going to the ECW arena and being at SummerSlam, the year that Bret Hart won the title from The Undertaker, and earlier in the night, watching Stone Cold Steve Austin get helped to the back after Owen Hart accidentally broke his neck. Like I can replay all of these memories of shows I was at live. They're in my head like a DVR recording. I remember every detail. I know who I was with. I know. And that's one of them, when the Briscoes returned to Ring of Honor on that 4th anniversary show. And I would often think about that, and when I'd watch their matches, and then I saw them wrestle countless times, obviously, after that. You were at the Ladder Wars, correct?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
wearing a Briscoe Brothers shirt. Wearing a Briscoe Brothers shirt as well. And I mentioned that at one point,
similar moments for you.
Yeah. At one point, Jay, he was a bloody fucking mess in that match, all over the place. And I got some Briscoe Brothers blood. Some Jay Briscoe blood on my Briscoe Brothers shirt. It's I believe it's at my parents' house. I'll try to find it next time I go there. But it's that that match. And there's a multitude of ones. I saw those guys live so many times that it's hard to pick out, because like you said, there's an aura and energy, and like we're trying to describe for people that were never there for a Briscoe Brothers match. There's just, the room felt different when they came in. There was a nervousness about them, like, oh shit, here we go. Like, oh no, shit's going down now. And it always did. Shit always went down. You know, it always fucking went down with those guys. And that, you know, that made it just a different aura. So I don't know that I can pick out like one specific. I mean, I watched them in the Ladder War. I watched them against the Motor City Machine Guns at that Good Times, Great Memories a couple months before that. They had a match, I want to say a couple years later against All Night Express. That was awesome. When those guys were on the top of their game and Kenny King and Rhett Titus were in the top of their game, like I just saw so many big time great matchups with those guys. And just every time it was like, you couldn't go to the bathroom during a Briscoe Brothers match. You couldn't go, let's go see what's going on at the merch table. No, you're not leaving. Are you kidding? You're not getting up and going. You're watching. You have to watch those guys. And it was that way from the moment that I saw them to the final time that I saw them live. It was just you just had to watch those guys. They made you pay attention. They made you watch. They made you stand up and give them that attention. And they always earned it. And they always earned it. And they always delivered. I mean, the work ethic of those guys. I know, Brian Alvarez talked about this on Wrestling Observer Radio with Dave. Is that they worked a Defy show and he's backstage with Matt Farmer, who we've had on shows before on Voices of Wrestling or whatever. Matt Farmer does books for Defy and a big part of that entire company. And Matt and Brian looking at each other and like thinking, guys, like, what are you doing? You don't have to try this hard. Like, it's just Defy. Like, people are just happy they're seeing the Briscoes. You guys don't have to go out there and kick. You don't have to go out there and kick it into high gear and give 110%. Like, who cares? It's just a Defy show, guys. It's fine. Just go in there, do your spots, and get out of there. And then he said they got to the back, and the first question was to the Briscoes, to Matt and Brian was there, but specifically to Matt was like, hey, what'd you guys think of the match? Did we do okay? And like, yeah, you did okay. What are you talking about? Like, we just booked you because you were the Briscoes. You didn't have to do anything. Like, yeah, you busted your ass and you did incredible. Like, of course. And he said, like, they were just working their asses off. And I never saw a Briscoe Brothers match, ever. Never saw one live, never saw one on tape, never saw one in Noah, never saw one in New Japan, never saw one at All In, never saw one at Warrior Wrestling or whatever, that I didn't say, God damn, those guys gave it 100% every single time. Like, think in your head, can you think of a time when you saw the Briscoes and said, yeah, all right,
melded in,
but
yeah, melded in, or
never.
Didn't give max effort.
Never.
No, absolutely not.
And that's why I said you couldn't go to the bathroom when they came out. You're like, well, shit, all right. Even if you wanted to, you're just like, fuck, I'm not going to the bathroom. Something's gonna happen. They're gonna kick ass. It's gonna be a great match. I don't know what I'm gonna see, but I'm gonna watch it. You couldn't leave. Can't miss a Briscoe Brothers match. Get out of here.
They'd go to those Crockett Cups in the modern NWA and work just as hard.
Fuck yeah.
When a lot of people don't exactly work their hardest in that company. So yeah, for sure. It's just you think about the promos. It's just, the one I love is when they're talking about Davey Ridge, the famous Terry Funk line with the Terry Funk ain't wearing no mouthpiece, which, by the way, was a Mark Briscoe line. Mark Briscoe said that line.
He did.
And then Jay repeated it. They were just their cadence and their chemistry and how they would finish each other's sentences, and how once the promos got going, Jay would get all fired up and just go on what you knew was not a pre-scripted tangent and shitting on his opponent, and Mark would just pepper in those little comments.
Yeah,
right? Or just a little
Oh, my bad. Yeah, in that one in particular, in that promo in particular, for people that haven't seen it, so they're ranting about Davey Richards and all those guys saying like, "Oh, you focused? Oh, we ain't got time to be focused. We're trying to get shit done. We live on a farm. Like, we ain't got time to focus. We're too busy doing work or whatever." So as the promo's going on, all of a sudden you hear a loud gunshot, and it's because Mark has fired a shotgun at a bottle of liquor that he finished, because he's in the background drinking the whole time. He's got this bottle of liquor. I don't know, whiskey or I don't know what it is exactly. I don't even know if they say it, but he's back drinking stuff. And all of a sudden you see him in the back and he puts it on like a hay pile, backs up and shoots it with a shotgun. And Jay goes like, damn, son, what you doing? And Mark goes, oh, my bad. I thought you were finished. It's like, what?
And this is all, and this entire one man.
Oh, it was Jim Beam, because he says, you finished that gym, or you killed that gym? Yeah, that's right. It was Jim Beam. I apologize. Thank you.
Yeah, and this entire one man play of Mark Briscoe is playing out while Jay Briscoe's cutting a promo.
Right.
In the foreground. And
staring
in the
at the
background,
camera, staring into your soul.
Yeah. And Mark Briscoe's in the background having a one-man show. And you know, normally it would be, sometimes he would have like juice boxes or like cookies or childlike food items that he would consume while Jay is ranting like a maniac, and you're fearing for the life of whoever he gets into the ring with. And Mark is I don't want to leave Mark out of any of this. He's such a key component to it. You know, and those promos are just, you really could get caught in a wormhole of those promos and just watch them. I think there's a playlist on YouTube. Someone put them all together one after another, and they're just so great and they're so brilliant. And they really would have worked even better in another time. I mean, I can only imagine those same exact promos, you know, on Memphis TV or in Continental or in Dallas, or insert the territory of your choice. They really would have worked well in a place like Memphis, where they would, you know, play long form pre-tape things like that at times. But if you don't think Jay Briscoe could stand at a podium and cut a Mid-Atlantic style promo, you're nuts. I mean, the guy, he would have worked well in any era. It's crazy. He had that old school promo ability, and he's just incredible talker with the whole prototypical, you know, 2000s work style, which he was better at than 99.9% of the guys who came up in his era, and perfectly transitioned and evolved into what pro wrestling is today. And they excelled in Japan, you know, bell to bell, and were successful in Japan, and were always made champions wherever they went. Yeah, just so great. Everything about them, you know, and everything about Jay was just so great.
Yeah, I mentioned that in my piece as well, is that, you know, I'm probably not doing this show. Yes, it was, you know, the CM Punk John Cena thing that made me literally create Voices of Wrestling or whatever. But like my fandom, without Ring of Honor, and we talked about this before. We talked about when Ring of Honor went out of business. We talked about it when Tony Khan bought Ring of Honor, is that without Ring of Honor, I'm not watching this shit anymore. Because I was done. I was ready to be done. I was over it. None of my friends were watching shit anymore. And I was like, why am I was the last hang around of all my friends. And they're making why are you still watching wrestling? And I used to think, I don't know why. I don't like. It hit me, and I stayed longer than other people. But at this point, why am I still doing this? And then I had somebody that I met talking about wrestling online was like, "Hey, have you ever watched Ring of Honor?" And I said, "No, I don't know what that is." And he goes, "All right, I'm going to send you a bunch of discs and give it a try and see what you think or whatever." So in the mail, 2-3 weeks later, I get a bunch of data discs, you know, CDR data discs or whatever, all classic old school stuff. Pop into my computer, and the first thing I watched was The Era of Honor Begins. I said, well, you know what? He gave me the first 5 or 6 shows or whatever. I'll watch the first show. Here we go. The first match, all right, it didn't do much for me. It was like what was that? I wrote about it in the piece, but I forget what that first Ring of Honor match was. Not exactly the best foot forward for Ring of Honor. Like it's miraculous I stayed through. Let me get the exact match.
The Christopher Street Connect.
Yes,
Christopher Street Connection
Hit Squad versus Christopher Street Connection or whatever. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if this is going to do it for me. The next match is Amazing Red and Jay Briscoe. And now
I regret to inform you, Ring of Honor is canceled after the Christopher Street Connection versus the Hit Squad match.
Right. Yes. Not exactly the best foot forward. I'm thinking, man, all this dumb shit on Major American, you know, I just want to watch guys wrestle. I became a work rate nerd.
That one might not make it to the new Honor Club, and the Jay Briscoe Amazing Red match might end up retroactively being the
right.
First
People
match
might think that was the first match in Ring of Honor history when it's all said and done, which honestly, for the better. That's fine. But that I stuck with it and said, all right, well, what's this? And what I saw there was fucking, I mean, the match itself, both guys, Amazing Red has had 1,000 better matches. Jay Briscoe has had 10,000 better matches than this one. But it was the looks that these guys had, the style that they worked, the handshake before. They're both wearing, Jay's wearing like his wrestling gear, you know what I mean? Like his nerdy wrestling attire.
The singlet.
Yeah. Like Amazing Red's wearing the biggest quadruple XL shirt and his fucking bandana and his baggy pants or whatever. And I'm like, what? And then they just did shit. It was just a spot fest. It's not that good, but it's a spot fest. And that's what I wanted. I didn't know that's what I wanted out of wrestling. And I saw that and was like, okay, this is different. This is not what I'm getting from WWF or WWE anymore. This is not what I'm getting. That was it. It was the only game in town. ECW was gone. WCW was gone. All I had was WWE. And I was like, they're not giving me shit. This is kind of interesting. This is kind of fun. And that was it. I was hooked. I was like, all right, well, let's see what we got here. And the rest of that Air of Honor Begins show is pretty damn good. It's got a great main event. The next few shows for Ring of Honor, all pretty damn good as well. And yeah, you had the Christopher Street Connection and the Backseat Boys and all that sort of stuff. But you had the Paul Londons, the Amazing Reds, the Jay Briscoes, the Brian Danielsons, the Low Keys, the Christopher Daniels, those sort of guys. And that was like, all right, that's what I want out of wrestling. And from that point forward, from 2002, from that moment I watched the Air of Honor Begins and watched Jay Briscoe and Amazing Red, from that point forward to today, that's why I'm a wrestling fan today. Because I was ready to give that shit up. Because there was nothing for me anymore. And it's 2002,
right there
man.
with you.
You can't pop on the WWE Network. I mean, I had some DVDs and some tapes or whatever. You can only do that so long. If I didn't know that this entire world existed, I mean, bam, that was it. Air of Honor Begins. It began for me. And from the rest of that point forward, that's why we're here now. So, yeah. And you said you're right there with you. So it's like,
I completely agree. I mean, that was a dire time, for me as a wrestling fan. I had fallen out with WWF during the Attitude Era, and ECW was dead, and WCW was dead. And, when TNA started up, it was a little too goofy for me, and Japan wasn't exactly red hot at that time. And, I can confidently say that if it weren't for Ring of Honor, we might not be sitting here doing this show. I might have found other shit to do. It definitely kept my flame alive. Till about, through that early, through about 2005, 2006 for sure. It kept my flame alive. It kept me going to live shows, which I had stopped doing. And then, when Ring of Honor had their hot period from about 2005 to 2007 or so, which Jay Briscoe was obviously a huge part of, that really reinvigorated my love for all of it, and then I got back into my Japanese tapes and was really into Noah at that time. So yeah, I'm right there with you.
Yeah. And I made, what was weird about it is like when I stopped, when all my friends stopped watching wrestling in the early 2000s or whatever, and I was the last one left or whatever. Once that Ring of Honor started really going and I started saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to start going to these shows. I started making new friends. And now I have friends that I'm still friends with that I was like, you know what? I need wrestling friends. I don't need friends. I need wrestling friends. And I've made wrestling friends. I found coworkers. I found people that I talked to on message boards. I found people that lived in the Chicago area, people that I saw at shows or whatever. And I became friends with those people. And that kind of completely changed. Because nowadays, pretty much, I want to say about 100% of my friends are wrestling fans in some way, shape, or form. Maybe 95. There are a couple that aren't. But they'll if I say, hey, I'm going to a wrestling show, they'll go with me or whatever. They're not completely opposed to it. But like, that was the turning point for me. It was to say, like, you know what? I'm just going to make friends that like wrestling. Like, that's a lot easier than trying to, hide this hobby that I have. Fuck it. I'm just going to find friends that and we went to every single Ring of Honor show in Chicago from about, mid 2004 until about 2010. I was at every single Chicago Ring of Honor show. Nothing could stop me. If I'd plan vacations around it, I'd plan it. I'm not missing a show, because you couldn't miss a show, especially in that, you talk about that 2005 to 2007 era. Think I'm going to miss any of those shows? Get out of here. Those shows were fucking awesome. So it was like, I canceled everything. I canceled. I'd have girls that, hey, you want to go on a date? And I wasn't dating much, to be honest. That was a rare occasion to go on a date. I was like, fuck no, I'm not available that Saturday. Like, what are you doing? Oh, I don't know. I'm busy. I had to lie and be weird. And they probably were like, well, this guy's a weirdo. I'm not going to date him anymore. Why is he being so sketchy about this Saturday? Fucking great times, good times, great memories. That Saturday. I'm not going out with you. Like, man, that's this Saturday. I'm going to hang out with you. Get out of here. Go get drinks and talk. No, I got to watch the Briscoes and Steen and Generico. Get out of here.
Let's face it, Toots. We're not getting married.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So
like Man Up stayed with me. It's still with me. I wasn't going to marry that girl. I don't even know her name. Screw her.
Yeah.
I think it was Melissa. Whatever. Beat it.
And for me, I mean, I lived right in that vortex. So for me, it was, yeah, like you said, you had to go to all of them. So whether it was Hammerstein, whether it was Philly, whether it was Edison, New Jersey, you know, so I was getting hit from all sides. I mean, I considered driving to Boston a few times, never did. But, you know, that definitely kept the flame alive, and all, you know, Briscoe's a massive part of that. And really, you know, because of some circumstances, they're really the quintessential Ring of Honor wrestlers. They were there from beginning to literally today. Mm-hmm. And the one constant, everybody else eventually was able to move on, you know, like we alluded to earlier. You know, but I think about, you know, earlier I said someone asked me for Rex, and I just texted back, just watch everything.
Yeah.
But some of the ones that stand out, I mean, you know, the Noah match against, the Nakajima Ibushi match in Noah.
Just watched that one
sure.
Right before we got on the air here. I just watched that one.
The Kotaro Suzuki Ricky Marvin match from Noah, for sure. I mean, that whole Noah run, like around 2007, 2008, you really can't go wrong with any of them. The singles matches, you know, the Adam Cole fight without honor, I think it was, with the thumbtacks in the mouth, the Jay Lethal match, the fight on the farm that we talked about, I think, you know, that would be right up there. The obviously all three FTR matches, but everybody, you know, knows that the ladder war, with Steen and Generico. But they had other great matches with Steen and Generico. That was hardly their only great match.
They had a ton
against Steen and Generico. I mean, that feud is probably one of the more underrated in-ring feuds, you know, of that era or this era, whatever era you want to consider it a part of, because people think of the ladder war. I mean, fuck, man, you could argue that wasn't even their best match with the matches that those teams had against one another. You know, and I don't want to leave, you know, I'm trying to just spray to all fields here with eras and places and singles matches and stuff from Japan. How about when, you know, they wrestled the Kings of Wrestling and those were big time hyped matches, and because they were. I
mentioned the All Night Express ones too. Like, you might think like Rance Titus and Kenny King. I'm like, no, trust me, those guys went out there and beat the shit out of each other. Those are great matches, great series of matches.
Yeah, for sure.
The World's Greatest Tag Team. What the hell were they called on the Shelton and Haas? I remember live watching that match. What the hell were they called in Ring of Honor? I'm blanking on the name of.
Weren't they just called World's Greatest? They weren't called World's Greatest Tag Team?
I don't know if they were still World's Greatest Tag Team or they changed names or whatever, but they had a series of really, really good matches as well. Really professional ass matches. Because Charlie Haas wasn't going to go out there and go through ladders and shit, so they just went out there and wrestled. You know what I mean? It was like a wrestling match. You know, them and Shelton Benjamin and Haas, you know, they didn't go out there and go through ladders and go through tables and go nuts or whatever. They just had matches, and they were good at that because they were good at fucking everything, no matter what the type of match was. Whether it was a match against the Young Bucks, whether it was a match where they had to go through tables and thumbtacks, or it just had to be a wrestling match. They could do all of that stuff.
Yeah, and Shelton and Haas, when Benjamin and Haas came in, they had great matches against Kings of Wrestling. I could think of one in particular. Maybe it's match and not matches. But I know for sure. You know, that was a big deal to Ring of Honor at the time to get Benjamin and Haas to wrestle, you know, Castagnoli and Hero, and to wrestle the Briscoes during that. What was that? Probably around 2009 or something like that. 2008, 2009-ish. But we're probably leaving out so many, which is, you know, why I say you really cannot go wrong with watching Jay Briscoe wrestle. You really cannot go wrong with watching Jay Briscoe cut a promo. Any time, any era.
Just find something, click it, and watch it. Yeah, you'll be fine.
There's no real, you know, downtime and in his career, and you know, just an all-timer, an absolute all-timer. And you know, that's not the death talking. You know, we've talked about this before. This guy, an all-time great who was about to really get his due. And, you know, you You just think about Mark. You think about those kids, that poor little girl who may not walk, and the wife and the father, and how close that family is.
Yeah.
They never really, the family never really made it up my way to the shows I went to. But, you hear stories of how, I guess they went to some of the Philly shows. I don't really remember seeing them though, but you hear stories of how, they would the Briscoe family would pack the front rows of these buildings for these ROH shows too, and how close and tight knit they were. And Jay had the football background, and you could just look, I don't know what position he played, but he looks like a free safety to me. I mean, the way he moves,
a little lean,
the way he's built.
Good lateral movement. Good. Yeah, I'm with you. That sounds about right.
I could see him being a hard hitting free safety, or maybe even a running back who just, runs super hard and is just a total pain in the ass to tackle. Did you ever play football or no?
I never did, but I played like rec football. Right? I never actual tackle, but I know exactly the person that you're talking about. There was always a guy that you're like, that guy's the running back or whatever, but then you couldn't take him down.
Right? You're like, and it's not, and it wasn't always the biggest or strongest guy.
Sometimes he was like a skinny short guy, and you're like, that's the guy, but you couldn't fucking tackle him because he was just an asshole. He just wouldn't go down.
We would play teams, and it's like, man, it just, as a defensive player, you just hated that, like tackling certain guys. It hurt. It hurt to tackle certain players. That's the kind of energy Jay Briscoe. You watch him wrestle, and it's like obvious that he had a football. He's one of those guys where the football background was obvious, just the kind of athlete he was, and the way he moved around. Mark too, for that matter.
You're absolutely right about him being like the free safety. Like, he reminds me of like insert grindy white free safety that just drives his head into everybody. You're Adam Archuleta's, you're in Chicago, you're Gary Fensick's, you're, insert, who I'm talking about, like that.
Rich
archetype.
With the Gary Fensick.
Gary Fensick, yeah.
I love it. I was going to say Chuck Cecil.
Chuck Cecil, there you go. Yeah, there you go.
Like, that's Jay Briscoe. That's who he
just put his head down and just run through you with his head down. It's like,
Yeah,
you want to catch a pass when you see that guy coming at you. Put your hands out. Fuck that. I'm putting my hands down, man. I ain't catching that ball. Get out of here.
Get those alligator arms coming across the middle on Jay Briscoe.
Yeah, get out of here.
And Mark was probably the strong safety, so you got them both stalking you down. Yeah, no part of that. But man, just an incredible
John
athlete.
Lynch. That's I didn't want to do Adam Archuleta. Adam Archuleta was a nice nod to you, but John Lynch, same thing.
Yeah, they're all the same ilk, but Lynch is probably the best example. I mean, we pulled Gary Fensick and Chuck Cecil like the old men that we are, but John Lynch is the, but yeah, Lynch would be what we're trying to get at here. We missed the obvious one somehow, but yeah, that's kind of the idea. Basically, not Jason Sehorn.
Yes,
that's
right.
not Jason Sehorn. More Ronnie Lott than Jason Sehorn
for sure.
Yeah, but what a wrestler, what an athlete, what a promo, man.
There's not gonna be another one. There's never gonna be another Jay Briscoe, man.
I don't know. He's I'm just now I'm just cycling through his matches because I'm seeing if I missed any, running through the obvious ones or some. I tried to give some not so obvious ones, and there's just so many. It's just so stupid because they wrestled everybody. Like They look at all the great teams of the era, the Young Bucks. They wrestled Red Dragon. They wrestled, like we said, the Kings of Wrestling. They wrestled,
Naomichi Marufuji and Kota Ibushi.
Yeah, everyone that came through.
Naruki Doi and Shingo. Austin Aries, Roderick Strong.
Hey, they wrestled Okada and Nakamura.
Right.
All
the way to Kyle Fletcher and Mark Davis. Their final match is Carl Davis and Mark Fletcher, I believe. Or not maybe that was that wasn't their final match, but pretty close to their final match. Aussie Open, that's another through line that you can go to. They
wrestled everyone right through all the big teams all the way through today. And, it would have been great to see them on AEW television wrestling all those great teams for the first time, and some of the others, they never really got to wrestle the Bucks again. And I don't know the last time they wrestled the Bucks. But they surely would have had a chance to wrestle them in a high profile spot. They even did an angle with the Young Bucks after one of the FTR matches. Right. So it's like, you'd have to think that was, coming down the pike somewhere again. So you can't go wrong. You could throw a dart at the board and land on a great Jay Briscoe match.
Right. If it was a good wrestler from the years of 2002 to 2022, there's a good chance the Briscoe brothers or Jay Briscoe had a good match against them. So,
Jay Briscoe during his singles run was so great. But, there are a lot of people who think Mark was even better. Now, I'm not one of them. But Mark had a very interesting singles run during those years too. And that's really where Mark kind of took the gimmick in a different direction, and they really became two different people during that era, around 2012.
Right, that's when Mark was hanging out in the rafters and screaming like he became kind of a
more of an Appalachian kind of person.
Yeah, a little
Jay
more of a
was.
wild man from the mountains type of thing or whatever.
Yeah.
And that works because look at him. It's Mark Briscoe, but it was interesting that they did feel like they were distancing themselves from each other a little bit, and they still
they were. Yeah, that's where the split came, really. And in terms of how they presented themselves, and it remained that way even when they came back teaming together. I'm just going through these matches again. They wrestled the Von Erichs last year, Marshall and Ross. They wrestled Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson in Impact. They wrestled. I mean, if you were any kind of a prominent tag team over the last 22 years, you got in the ring at some point with the Briscoes. It's
What if everything you got came with a little bit of money? Spicy chicken ramen with a side of quarters, a full tank of gas, and a $5 bill, an entire pantry's worth of groceries, and a pocket full of cash. Well, then you'd be living life on the upside. The first platform that gives you real cash back in real life wherever you roll. Restaurants, grocery stores, gas stations, all cashback opportunities. So order the expensive appetizer, buy a little extra at the store, fill your gas tank till the pump stops. Because with Upside, you can. Start earning cash back just for doing you. Download the free Upside app and use promo code SPICY for an extra $10 cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. That's promo code SPICY. Promo code SPICY. SPICY for an extra $10 on the free Upside app. Start living life on the upside with the free Upside app.
This is the smell of the leftover tuna fish sandwich you left in your lunchbox over the weekend in a wimpy trash bag.
Wimpy, wimpy, wimpy!
Blech! And this is the smell of that same sandwich in a hefty, ultra-strong trash bag.
Hefty, hefty, hefty!
Ah, smell the difference? Hefty Ultra Strong has Arm & Hammer with continuous odor control, so no matter what's inside your trash, you can stay one step ahead of stinky. And for bigger jobs, try the superior strength of Hefty Large Black Bags.
The former Super Smash Brothers, the Dark Order, Uno and Grayson, they wrestled those guys a bunch of times. It's the Kingdom. They just had a great match with the Kingdom. Last year.
That match rocked. Yeah, that match was great. Forgot about that match.
So, it's any team over the last 22 years, any style, they can brawl, they can fly. They flew a lot when they were younger. Mark Briscoe, the Froggy Bow. I mean, he crafted his own distinct style when they went singles. When Jay was getting the singles push. They wrestled Guerrillas of Destiny. They had that New Japan run where they won the IWGP titles there in 2015-ish or 16-ish, whatever that was. So they wrestled in New Japan plenty. You mentioned the Motor City Machine Guns. So I don't know, Rich, you have anything
just
left
watch
to say?
something. Yeah, just take some time this weekend, watch something, and hopefully just appreciate how great he was, and also I think it's good to get a little mad that he never did get that piece and never got that redemption, and especially when you watch this show, whatever it's going to be on YouTube or whatever, and just know that it's not for some fuckers at Turner. This that would have been on Dynamite this week, but it's fine.
Someone said the American Wolves, that's obvious.
Oh, yeah.
It's another one. And, I mean, they're good. So, yeah, I guess, they filmed a tribute show after Dynamite this week, which is going to be on the Honor Club for free. And I'm sure they'll do, at some point, a full-on Jay Briscoe tribute on one of the Ring of Honor shows where there's no real corporate overlords to shut it down or whatnot. I'm sure they're going to do something. You saw all the wrestlers wearing the armbands. So I can't, I don't know when that's going up, but I can't wait to check it out. And, I don't know much about it. I didn't read any spoilers or what they did.
I'm just going to go in completely blind. Yeah, I don't want to know anything about it. I'm just going to go in blind and see what happens.
Yeah, so really looking forward to that. And I don't know. You have anything else to add on?
I got nothing.
On Jay Briscoe?
Yeah, I got nothing. You if you want any more about this, I wrote a piece, as I said, on flagshippatreon.com, going over some of the stuff that we discussed here and a little bit more. And you did a bit on the Thursday Dynamite review at the beginning of that as well. So if people want that, that's at patreon.com/voicesofwrestling, voicesofwrestling.com/Patreon.
Which, a lot of people are telling, I'm getting some feedback from that. And a lot of people are saying, yeah, Joe, I hope you're good. I hope everything's all right. I did not want that audio to be about me. I appreciate what everybody's saying, but I really tried to just tie, the feelings that I felt and tie it back to Jay Briscoe and his family. That's all I meant to do with that audio. So it's not about me. My family's fine. If I gave people the impression that everyone's fine, I'm fine, Brittany's fine, the kids are fine. It's just, we had a little family strife over the week. Yeah, it happens, and it's something private I'm not going to talk about, but it's nothing even in the universe of this. I did not want to. So just to be clear, and I don't think many people took it this way, but that I really did not want that audio to be about me. I was just trying to make it personal and tie it back to how I felt about this and why this situation, this horrible thing that happened to this family, hit me so hard, and tossed in some personal anecdotes. And so I just wanted to clear that up too, because I was getting a little uncomfortable with some of the feedback that I was starting to get from that. So I just wanted to clarify. But anyway.
No, and you touched on it a little bit there, and we're not ones on this podcast ever preach and do that sort of stuff, but wear a fucking seatbelt and don't drive distracted. That's all I have to say. Put the fucking phone down. Nobody cares. Put the goddamn seatbelt on. You're not cool.
We don't know why that lady swerved into the lane yet, and that's another victim here. And she was 27 years old, and she's no less important than Jay Briscoe is, and she has people who are in her life who are going to grieve her, and she was far too young to die as well. And we don't know why she swerved into his lane, and maybe we will never know. But at 5:00 in the afternoon, and a young person who you wouldn't think had health problems, and maybe maybe she blew out a tire, maybe there was something in the road, and at 5 p.m., you don't necessarily, your mind doesn't go to drunk driving. Maybe if it's 2 a.m, you think, all right, maybe someone was drunk.
Right.
I'm not trying to play detective, but it's hard for your mind to not go to a distracted driver. And maybe she was, looking at her phone or answering a text or changing a song or whatever. And anyone listening to this is lying through their teeth if they say they've never touched their phone while they're driving a car. And it's something that just, we should all be more cognizant not to do. Even if it doesn't turn out that this was the case here, it doesn't hurt to talk about it. And it's something I feel strongly about. And on my audio today, that's the personal anecdote I mixed in, and it made me emotional talking about it. And because it's a shame, and people shouldn't die when they're 27 or they're 38. And, especially as senselessly as that, if that turns out to be the case, that's so senseless. And and it's something that I hope people think about the next time they're in a car and you have that compulsion to grab your phone. And we've all been there.
Yeah.
And we've all done
I was
it.
there earlier today.
You're lying if you say you haven't.
Right. And I nearly did it, and I was like, but no, I just thought about, because all day I've been thinking about that. And I got part of my drive, no one around me, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? And I reached down, I'm like, what am I doing? Stop.
Just don't do it. It can wait. And this day and age, I mean, new cars have Bluetooth, slightly older cars, you got the aux cord. There's really no excuse, and if you don't happen to have a vehicle where any of those things are options, it can wait. It can fucking wait, and
turn on the radio, go listen to some sports radio and roll the windows down. It can wait. You'll be fine.
So there is no excuse, and if it can't wait, pull over. That's all, it's not going to repeat what I said on my other audio, but it's just something that, in my family, it's a point of emphasis. It started as a fun thing that has now turned into a point of emphasis. And, I maybe it'll get through to some people who listen to us. And I don't like being a preachy guy.
No. And I didn't want to do that either, but
but maybe some of our listeners will think twice when they compulsively reach down. We all have that habit.
And this is unrelated, but when discussing seatbelts and distracted driving and stuff, like we were talking on our Discord about things, and people are like, yeah, always make sure you wear a helmet when you're riding a bike or whatever. And I don't wear a helmet when I ride a bike, and I ride all the time. And I'm thinking, why do I not no, I'm an idiot. So I went and bought a helmet. It's just like, so sometimes you need those reminders of like, yeah, why am I being dumb? Who cares? Oh, I won't look cool. Fuck, who cares?
Yeah.
Wear the damn helmet. I can't trust other people. You don't know what other people are going to be doing. I don't want to die riding my bike, getting hit by a car. So that's a terrible way to go. So no, I'm going to buy a helmet. I'm going to wear the helmet. Because why not? Because I don't want to be gone. I don't want the nurse to have to live without me, type of thing. So it's like, fuck, sometimes you need those reminders, those wake up calls, those slaps in the face to just, tell you. So if any solace can be taken out of this, it's like, maybe a few people will be smarter about, the way that they, handle their safety and their personal being and all that.
These dumb things that we all do.
Just the dumbest, stupidest things. And we don't do it for no reason. Why am I grabbing my phone? Do I really have to scroll The Athletic while I'm driving? No. What the fuck are you doing?
You have to look at, do you need to see your Twitter mentions right this second?
No.
Never really need that.
Honest. You never have to look at your Twitter mentions, to be honest. But especially when you're driving. Come on.
It's so maybe that's something that some small good that can come of it is people will think about that. And hopefully we do find out what the real actual cause was that forced that woman to swerve into the other lane. I mean, maybe she was trying not to kill a fucking squirrel. Maybe we'll never find out. But she was 27 years old herself. I guess there's no way to properly transition into like making fun of wrestling matches or something.
I know.
But we have to get off of this at some point. So we don't have an ad this week. It's a buffer. We just have to bluntly transition into talking about some wrestling.
It'd be nice to say, all right, well, with that being in mind, let's talk about HelloFresh. No, we can't do that.
Let's talk about Vince McMahon raping Rita Chatterton.
I was going to say, you want to just do that and then get all the shitty stuff out of the way right away?
I guess.
Fuck, it's there. Well. Let's do it. All right. Per the Wall Street Journal, Vince McMahon has settled his case with former WWE referee Rita Chatterton, who we discussed many, many months ago on this flagship podcast when we said, you know what? This stuff's not out of thin. This stuff has happened before. Have you heard of Rita Chatterton? And there was a lot of people that had not heard of Rita Chatterton. And that was good that we hopefully educated some people to look this up and discover that, you know what? This Vince McMahon stuff is it's not new. It's been going on for a while. So obviously Rita claimed that McMahon raped her in 1986. Wall Street Journal reported that a settlement was reached in December, a month after Chatterton and her lawyers sought $11.75 million in damages. Apparently the figure is a lesser figure, but no number has been disclosed and probably will not be disclosed. And Jerry McDivitt, Vince's personal lawyer, said of the settlement, and this is a doozy here, quote, Mr. McMahon denies and has always denied raping Miss Chatterton, and he settled the case solely to avoid the cost of litigation. All right. There we go. All right, let's move on.
No, I mean, did you
just wipe the hands? All right, let's move on. Yep.
Did you listen to the Bill Simmons podcast with Nick Khan?
I listened to bits and pieces of it, little parts of it. Yes.
So Simmons asked Nick Khan directly if the Rita Chatterton case would affect any transactions they do, meaning, a sale or a merger or whatever it is that's coming down the pike, which, by the way, Nick Khan made it abundantly clear that there's some kind of transaction coming. So that's not even, any kind of secret or anything. And I mean, he's the CEO of the company, and but Khan kind of just called it. How did he refer to it? An obstacle that they would
something that got in the way, something that I forget the exact, we're paraphrasing there, but I'll try to find the exact quotes, but yeah, something that got in the way of discussions or whatever, or something that could get in the way of discussions. It was pretty
something he felt that would just be a minor bump in the road to achieving whatever they're, but see, people are too focused on the way that Khan described the case and less focused on the fact that Simmons interviewed him this past Tuesday, and apparently this settlement is from December.
Yeah.
So Khan knew full well that this was something that was dealt with, and, gave an answer that kind of indicated that, we'll just kind of cross that bridge when we come to it. Well, that bridge has been crossed already. So in hindsight, he kind of looks bad there, for not, I guess the Bill Simmons podcast might not be the place where you want to disclose this massive settlement.
That a huge $1 million settlement is coming, in a couple of days.
Yeah. Or maybe he didn't know it was going to go public, because wasn't this the Wall Street Journal who reported this?
Yes. So it's possible that it wasn't. Wall Street Journal got it, and then they just said, all right, fuck it. Then
my feeling was, I don't think Khan knew this was coming down the pike. I mean,
because it was probably a non-disclosed, because we don't know the figure, we don't know all that sort of stuff, so it was probably non-disclosed, but somebody leaked it to the Wall Street Journal, and they've been getting a lot of stuff because they've been diligent about it, and some people in the wrestling media think that they have a source that's leaking stuff. Well, that's also just what journalism is. It's like when you find a source, when you find someone that tells you stuff, you ask them stuff, and sometimes they give you stuff. That's kind of how journalism works. So it's okay that but they've been getting for
$75 an hour, there's a certain person who will teach you how journalism works if you're willing to pay the price.
Okay.
The fucking clown.
But the same person who's confused about how it works. But anyway, you can, they get information because they probably ask people, or they've been on the ground, or they've been on top of this stuff. So they probably did not think this was going to get leaked, and then it got leaked. So he probably thought, it's kind of in the past, a bump in the road or whatever. And he kind of looks like a goofball now, knowing that. But at the time, if you don't know that it's going to get leaked, you could say that sort of thing and think you're getting away with it. And he did. So there we are.
Yeah. That the Simmons interview was interesting because I thought Simmons asked good questions. Okay, let me frame it to you this way. I thought Simmons asked good questions based on the type of questions that I think Bill Simmons was equipped to ask.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes. He didn't get in there and grill the guy because that's not what
he couldn't. Well, he also couldn't.
Right.
Because let me flesh out my point. My point is, if me or you interviewed Nick Khan and asked the same exact questions Bill Simmons asked, people would say we left stuff on the table, right? Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. Of course. Yeah.
But Bill Simmons maybe isn't cognizant of the other questions that you could ask in that scenario. To me, Bill Simmons asked all of the questions that his personal knowledge of pro wrestling that he was equipped to ask. He asked all the pertinent ones that would have come up in his. I'm blowing this, Rich. Save me here. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
I think he comes from the mindset for a few different things. People that are listening to the Bill Simmons podcast, interviewing Nick Khan, they're not expecting him to sit down and just grill the guy for an hour and a half or whatever. And I don't know if Bill Simmons is equipped to grill the guy for an hour and a half and talk about all this stuff and dig up stuff. Like if David Bixenspan did the interview, it'd be a lot different than if Bill Simmons did the interview. You know what I mean? Like, has all this stuff and say, well, what about this?
Exactly.
Or hey, what about this? But
and follow-ups and
right.
And Khan wouldn't have the same ability to bullshit Bix or me or you or Dave Meltzer that he could to massage Bill Simmons, because Bill Simmons just doesn't have the knowledge.
No.
And I don't even think that Bill Simmons, like I said, I think he asked the hard questions that he thought he had to ask. He just didn't have the follow-ups or maybe some of the other questions because he's not in the mud with it like we are.
What I think that Simmons did well, though, in this interview is that I think he let Nick kind of made Nick make himself look like an asshole without Simmons making him look like an asshole. Does that make sense? Like, he would, Khan would say something, and Bill, instead of just being like, well, Nick, that's not true because AEW made, this amount of money and da-da-da-da-da, he would say, really? Is that true? Yeah. Really? And kind of force Nick to then say, have to either follow up or not follow up or.
I don't think this was not Simmons is not. This was not a softball interview.
No. And when Simmons sensed that there was some bullshit coming out, he didn't just say, Nick, that's great. All right. This is an Ariel Helwani, just lapping up whatever shit Triple H is getting him. He would push back a little bit, but in a way that a Bill Simmons can push back, in the way that the sports guy can push back and not say, well, now hold on, Nick, like Tony Khan makes this amount of money, instead of just being like, really? They don't make money? They're like, oh, really?
Yeah.
Like, that sort of, hey, enlighten me, Nick. Hey, tell me about this. Cause I don't, what you're saying doesn't make sense to me, but enlighten me. And Nick had, in a lot of times had no follow-ups or had nothing else that he could expound on. And it kind of, if you know better, that this guy is lying through his fucking teeth or just being a cold, calculated business 101 asshole or whatever. But, and Bill kind of let him do that. Bill kind of let him hang himself as opposed to saying, and confronting him with the mistruths that he might have been saying or how cold and callous he was. He let Nick kind of do that on his own.
Simmons did as well as his knowledge base allowed him to do.
Yes.
That is what I awkwardly was tripping over earlier. That is the best way I can summarize it. Simmons did as well as his knowledge base allowed him to do, particularly with a person he clearly admires and likes. These guys text each other. They're pals. I don't know if Khan ever represented Simmons. I don't think he did, but Khan has certainly represented all of Simmons' pals in the sports media. They know each other. They run in the same circles. They live in the same city. They obviously have hung out before, but he still was not afraid to ask him questions like the Rita Chatterton question, which someone like Ariel Helwani, there's no fucking way he would have asked that question. No chance in hell. He'd ask it to Dana White. He'd ask it to, but when it comes to Nick Khan and WWE, for whatever reason, Helwani curls up into a ball and becomes no better than some of the wrestling people out there who bow at the feet of that company. But so anyway, that's what I was trying to express with Simmons. He did as well as his knowledge base would allow him to do in the scenario. And as for Nick Khan, I see a lot of people ripping a lot of his answers and stuff. And I know everybody hates billionaires. Everybody hates business moguls. I get it. Rich, I don't have it in me to hate people who have a lot of money. I know that differs a lot from a lot of people. Did Nick Khan give a lot of sleazy answers? Did he give a lot of typical mustache curling, quote unquote, capitalist man answers? Yeah, he did. But at the same time, what'd you expect him to do?
Right. That's what he is. That's what I think. What ultimately with
so
this
it doesn't
interview,
bother me.
It doesn't bother me as much because I kind of know what this guy is. Like, he's a cold, calculated side. I mean, I'm sure when Stephanie and Triple H were running the company, he was saying, yeah, Vince is out of touch. That guy's got to go. And now that Vince is back. Yeah, no, Vince, I admire him. He's a fucking windsock, man. He's just looking for the next payday. He's just looking for the next thing. He's a cold, calculated asshole. That's why everybody was more than happy to give him the blame. And he probably said, give me all the blame when people were getting fired. Yeah, it's Nick Khan's fault that you're fired. Because he doesn't give a shit. He does not fucking care. And that's what he is. So it's like, I wasn't taken aback or surprised because that's always what I've known this guy to be. He's a soulless, he's just a corporate robot. And it's like,
it's the bottom line. It's the bottom line. And this is why he got to where he was. This is why
he has no emotion. He doesn't care about people. He doesn't care about things. He cares about
bottom line,
who he's working for and who's paying him right now.
And how can we squeeze the most money out of everyone around us? That's his job. And he does it well. And he does it better than anybody in that industry. And that's why his answers didn't, like, people were so offended and bothered by the things that he said. And I don't know. It's everything I expected. He's a smooth talker who you can tell that he very much has the ability to charm you, to charm people, and to speak a lot without really saying anything. He absolutely has that ability. You know, when you really break down this Simmons interview and some of the other interviews Khan has done, he really doesn't give you much, but he says a lot of words. You know, he's kind of like a slick talking NFL or NBA coach who says a lot who has mastered the art of saying a lot without saying anything. Sean McVay is like that. Guy will talk at that podium and answer a question for 7 minutes, and then you read back the answer and it's all garbage. It's nothing useful, right? But it sounds smart because he knows how to play the game. That's Nick Khan. So, I thought Simmons did ask a lot of the right questions. It's like what Simmons said. Well, Simmons even followed up and said, well, you still haven't answered why Stephanie left again. Remember? Because Khan basically dodged it.
Oh, yeah.
And Simmons said, well, he's like, you still haven't answered me. Like, why did she leave? You know? And because one thing about Bill Simmons, he's not scared to offend people or put them off. And he wasn't rude to Khan. But this is a guy who took on Roger Goodell and the NFL head on and lost his job because of it. He doesn't care. He's made it in this business. He's rich beyond any of our comprehension, Bill Simmons. And he's a big enough name to do his own thing. And he was more than willing to burn his bridge with the NFL if it meant speaking what he felt was his truth to power about Roger Goodell. So he wasn't going to be afraid to follow up with Nick Khan and ask him the right questions. And he did. But you can't make somebody give you useful answers. You can only do so much, to massage answers out of people. And I listened to that thing twice, and I listened to the Stephanie questions twice, and I still don't know why Nick Khan thinks Stephanie left again. I mean, basically he said, well, Stephanie knows that Vince is the right man for the job and her work is no longer needed. And, we all know that's horseshit. But what did people expect from Nick Khan? Did people expect Nick Khan to go into this interview and tell the truth and expose all the drama and make the company look bad? How is that advantageous to him? How is that his job? His job as the CEO is to make the company look good. His job is to make Vince coming back look like a positive. His job is to keep the stock up. So I think people, when they dunk on people like this and in situations like this, they're just not being realistic. You think the guy's just going to burn it down? Why would you think that? I got all the answers I thought I'd get. I don't know. I don't know. I just didn't get wound up about it like everybody else did. As far as the Chatterton settlement, good for her. She gets some closure. And this won't be the only one. With these new laws in New York and California that allow these people to come, that remove the statute of limitations and everything. I'm sure there's more coming down the pike. So
that was that. We'll see, obviously, what happens in terms of the sale, WWE. But again, like you said, that interview made it very clear to me again that's the direction they're going. That's where things are going, and that's not stopping anytime soon. So that's just going to continue to happen and continue to happen and continue to. And that's why he's doing these interviews. Nick Khan's doing these interviews to try to get more people to buy this fucking company. You know what I mean? More people to put bids in, more people for ESPN to be aware of it a little bit more, for Endeavor to be aware of it a little bit more, to know there's offers out there, to know that's what this is for. So this probably will not be the last. You'll probably hear from this guy a lot. Not going to hear from Vince, I don't think. I think Vince is going to try to, obviously, stay in the background for most of this stuff, except for in terms of, maybe being at the table or whatever. But in terms of the PR stuff, I think Nick's going to probably be front and center. Triple H, who knows? But he probably doesn't want to be front and center for this. He probably wants to be in the background. So you're probably going to hear a lot more from Nick over the next coming weeks and potentially months. So,
Khan said straight up, he said Vince doesn't like doing media. And quite honestly, when you hear Nick Khan talk, he's the guy you should have doing the media.
Yeah, especially when you take Vince McMahon's past interviews with mainstream media, which are always terrible and disastrous, and now add in the fact that now he's got like multitudes of rape allegations and settlements or whatever. That's not going to go well for him. So yeah, he probably should not be doing any of these interviews because he's liable to just explode and blow up and punch the guy and scream and snarl or whatever. So yeah, it's he did that.
Or say something dumb, and
he said that when he was on top of the world. He's trying to kill Bob Costas when he's like the media mogul of the world that everyone's trying to get at. And Bob Costas makes some thinly veiled things, and Vince McMahon's losing his goddamn mind. It's like, yeah, this guy cannot handle media in 2023. So yeah, there's a very good chance Vince will not appear on any mainstream media at any
Khan's
point.
perfect for that. I mean, people get real touchy when we talk about Nick Khan, but I'd hire that guy in a second. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, if
your goal is make the most money possible, he's the guy. That's why he has the job he has, because he made WWE and Vince McMahon more money than they ever made. And they said, okay, can we have you make us more money than we've ever made all the time? And he said, yes. And that's what he's doing now. And then when he leaves WWE after they're sold, he'll go to another company and make that company more money than they've ever made ever before.
And be their public face like he is now, with, an excellent talker and the art of talking a lot and saying nothing, all of those things, knowing the right things to say, and also being just such an in-tune insider, because all of these people in the business that he has to do business with all admire him, because he used to be their agent. He's been everybody's agent.
Right.
All of these people. So they all like him and they trust him, and and that's why he's always 2 steps ahead and knows what's coming down the pike. I could tell you a million different times where media people moved from ESPN to Fox, those in particular a few years ago, where people made weird media moves, and a lot of sports media people were like, oh, well, that move doesn't make sense. And then 6 months later, it made all the sense in the world. And that was Nick Khan moving his pieces and moving his clients because he was knowing the landscape and where things were going. And I don't want to get too in the weeds with it, but it's the same here. I'd hire that guy in a second.
And look at the money some of those people made. The money some of those people made moving to Fox or whatever, just stealing money.
I know. They even touched on that a little in the interview, how they talked about
stealing money from Fox.
Yeah, Colin Cowherd and Cowherd is kind of success, but like Skip Bayless,
is stealing money from Fox, man.
The guy cannot pull a number. I mean, he does not produce
making
numbers,
so much money.
He's one of the highest paid people in sports media. I mean,
Nobody watches him.
For what? Nobody watches the show. I mean, he loses to everything. I mean, even head to head in his own time slot. So, anyway, that was the Simmons interview.
Since we're talking about WWE, AEW, some stuff, let's talk about the ratings because there's been an interesting week of ratings. So we'll start with the Raw number. So Raw this week went up against the NFL. And it did not go well for Raw. Obviously, this is NFL playoff season. This week's show averaged 1.48 million viewers and a 0.42 in the 18 to 49 demo, placing 7th among cable originals on the night. The NFL playoff game was between the Dallas Cowboys and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. One of the highest rated NFL games in years. Wasn't it did I see that right? 1999?
I didn't see
that one. I forget exactly. I thought it was something like that. It was like, I don't know if that was in the demo or total viewers or whatever, but in the demo it averaged 31.1 million viewers, and this was across it was on ESPN and ABC and ESPN. It was on a bunch of different things, so they're kind of combining all those, but together 31.1 million viewers and an 8.39 in the 18 to 49 demo, an 8.39 to Raw's 0.42. One of those numbers is a lot bigger than the other. 8.39 in the 18 to 49 demo. Holy shit.
Yeah, we knew the game would be big. I mean, we talked about it. The Cowboys versus the Buccaneers with Tom Brady was a significantly bigger game than last year's comp, which was the Rams versus the Cardinals. And that game did around 22 or 23 million or something like that off the top of my head. But the Cowboys are obviously the number one brand in the NFL. You have Tom Brady on the other side, potentially playing his last game as a Buck and maybe overall. Whereas last year, the Rams, even though they're an LA team, aren't quite the national draw that people might think. And the Cardinals are a complete non-entity. I mean, they're just nothing. And it's interesting because this game was, both games, last year's game and this year's game, were blowouts. I mean, this could have been worse if this game was close, but Dallas blew his team out. I mean, the intrigue in this game is if kicker Brett Maher could make an extra point. I mean, he missed 4
I was watching a little bit of it, and it was like each one was worse than the other. Like, make a kick, man. Jesus Christ. This guy
missed 4 extra points, and he missed his last extra point in the final regular season. He missed 5 straight extra points between last week and this week, which is completely unheard of, even with the extra point move back, to the 25-yard line or whatever. So That was really the only intrigue here because Dallas just ran away with the game. Like I thought they would, by the way, on the NFL Intelligentsia. But yes, we knew Raw was going to get destroyed, and they did. So it was just a matter of how much damage it was going to do. And it doesn't really mean all that much in the grand scheme because they knew they were going to get destroyed here. But now football's over. Now it's officially over, and it's behind them. So next week's Raw number is going to be interesting, and then we see what pattern develops from there as we build up to the Royal Rumble, which is right around the corner next weekend, right? So
yes, yep.
The weekend of the championship games, and then from there the build to WrestleMania. So you would the next few Raws are going to do good, being it's Rumble season, and then from there we see, and now we really see where the rubber meets the road with Levesque because. The football was the obvious excuse. To me, though, we have year-over-year comps, and he was putting up the same numbers when Vince was putting up against football. Unless they have some hot storylines up their sleeve, I don't know why, again, year-over-year, he would do any better than Vince did in the run-up to Mania, but we're going to find out. So, and then NXT had a rough one, too. They were down big. And I guess here in your notes, it was a female viewership that really hit NXT hard for whatever reason, 33% drop from last week. Is that true?
Yeah, that's WrestleNomics. That's what they had. Yeah, they dropped at 33% week over week, which was interesting because this NXT had like a big time like Roxy match. Or it's the classic thing that I always think like promote and have women on top of your shows, and women are gonna, and it's never that way. It's never ever that
never
way.
The case.
It's never always the opposite. And people will tell you all the time, you got to push women if you want women to watch. No. Women like good wrestling. They like the same thing you like. What I mean? They like watching.
Yeah, just like good wrestling.
Yeah.
Men or women, they just want good wrestling.
Yeah, so it's like this thing.
You
gotta push
in the main
this
event.
girl because she'll work for the female demographic because they remind her of her. No, they just like good wrestling. Like it's not the secret thing you have to unlock. Like just put good wrestling on, they'll usually watch it.
You can't just put women in your main events and it'll magically draw women. It still has to be good TV. So yeah, that's always been kind of a myth. So now I see why you threw that note in there. But yeah, I mean, they were down 14% in total viewership and down almost 10% in 18 to 49. So not a good week for NXT either. I guess the fun one, Dynamite did their usual range, 969,000. And
yeah, anything fun about the Dynamite number that you've found? I dug in a little, and I don't know, there wasn't much. It was just kind of the normal stuff for them.
No, I mean, very similar to last week's number. That's where they're living right now, right about what they did this week. And the show's been really, really fucking good for like a month. I mean, maybe even longer. Like this week's again, 3 great matches again. It's like I said last week, it's almost boring how great that show is.
Yeah.
It's just great every week. And one point I made this week in my review was it really shows you how good of a book when you go down, the Moxley Hangman stuff, the Jericho Appreciation Society, Ricky Stark stuff, which has been good. The stuff where Saraya and Tony Storm have turned heel, and the what's going to happen with Sheeta and that whole deal. The main event, I thought Darby having that great match with Samoa Joe at the end of December, while Joe was feuding with the Wardlaw, and then Darby, wanting another piece of Joe later on, and then winning the TNT title from him was just a brilliant way to do that, where it's no skin off Joe's back and he doesn't look any worse for it. And now Darby is having this incredible he's having a vintage old school TNT title run that we used to get with Cody and Darby and Miro, where it's just great matches on TV every week.
Right, taking on all challengers. Just taking on anybody.
Yeah.
And Kushida, cool. Don't have a story, don't have a background, whatever. Come here, you want the piece of the title, you got it. Go for it.
Yeah, and the match was great.
Yeah.
I mean, how good was Kushida in that match?
That was classic Kushida.
Ice cold coming into it.
Yeah, I know. He's a guy that literally last week I was like, man, I don't know about this guy. I think he's washed. I think it's over. Nah, he's still good. Still pretty great.
Man, and I love the little touch of having Kevin Knight at ringside, who teamed with Kushida in the Super Junior Tag League. It's like It really pays you off for being a big-time wrestling fan. If you watch that tournament, these guys are still pals. And why wouldn't they be? You know what I mean? It's like Kushida's little buddy. And maybe as Knight graduates from the dojo, they'll stick together beyond that. And that's the shit. You could sink your teeth into it, and that's just a nice little touch. But it's a great match. There were 3 great matches on that show. And I thought the MJF stuff on Dynamite was phenomenal. Last week we watched him troll and get cheap heat and be that version of MJF. And this week he was that maniacal, dangerous, evil psychopath who is getting a little worried because Danielson's getting closer and closer. And he knows that Iron Man match is bad for him. And now he's trying to pay people off to break his arm and everything else. And sleazy Prince Nana taking the envelope and saying, maybe we should do business with this guy. I thought it was a great Dynamite again. It shows just great every week. Really is incredible. But more on the ratings. This was very interesting to me. So New Japan on Access has just been dying to death. And this week they did the Omega Will Ospreay match from Wrestle Kingdom. And for the first time, I think, since New Japan came back, they matched Impact, which airs before it, in total viewership at 81,000 viewers. And technically they beat Impact in 18-49 because they did 19,000 viewers to Impact 16,000. And that has never happened. New Japan has never beaten Impact in the 18-49. Now, we're talking about small numbers here. We're talking about margin of error being very, this could, but the point here is it's very clear that the Will Ospreay Kenny Omega match was a big draw in relation to this show and in relation to this network. And New Japan was up 72% in total viewership. So another feather in the cap for Kenny Omega, I think, and to a lesser extent, Will Ospreay. And I guess both of them for the buzz that the match created, to where people who follow the New Japan product through the Access show really made it a point to watch this match this week. And maybe there were some people who had already seen the match who decided they wanted to watch it again in full, beautiful HD. So, and New Japan, this is the first time they've even flirted with doing 6-figure viewership, which allegedly they used to do all the time on their first run on Access, but with interest down in the company and all those things, the viewership has really sunk. 40, 50,000 viewers a week some weeks. So to get back up to 81,000 viewers, to actually beat Impact, which aired earlier in the night in 18-49, I just thought that was notable. What'd you make of that?
No, I think it tells you just how viable New Japan on Access still is and still could be. Is people know they can get it and people can watch it. They just choose most weeks not to, because there's either just a match that they don't care about, a match that happened months ago that they don't, or whatever, or their just interest level in New Japan has waned or whatever. But this shows, that 72% up in total viewership. Those people get access. Those people know New Japan is on Access, and they watch it because this match was going to be on it, that Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega was on it. And now if you're New Japan, you got to hope either A, there's some way that we can make sure that we get those people to watch more regularly. Maybe they're reinvigorated by New Japan. Maybe they're interested again in what New Japan has, and that's great news for you. That's great. And we have always said that New Japan on Access is a bit of a sleeping giant. People kind of shrug it off and go, whatever. There are a lot of people that follow New Japan only on Access. They don't have New Japan World. They're not interested in waking up at 2 a.m. to watch these shows. They're not interested in huddling over their laptop or trying to cast it to their TV. A lot of people just want to turn on their TV and watch it in HD. And we have said that from the moment this show started, that people do not give enough credit for what that show could be for New Japan Pro Wrestling. But we've seen it on death's door because there was just not that much stuff compelling in New Japan over the last couple of years. But now you have a match like this, and it proves that people are aware of it, do know about it, and are willing to watch it if there is something that they need to watch or want to watch or whatever. So that's interesting. And I don't know, on the flip side of that, is it a really awesome number for New Japan, or is it also a sign of just where Impact is in the ecosystem as well?
Well, those numbers are down for Impact to some, but pretty much in the range of what they do. I mean, sometimes they do more than that. Sometimes they do less than that. It wasn't an unusual number for Impact. I think they were down from the week before,
Yeah, it was down 20% in total viewership week over week. I just mean for people that aren't aware of this, that don't look at the ratings, that aren't knowing that a New Japan on Access show at 10 p.m. replaying a match from 3 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, or whatever, matched first run, brand new Impact Wrestling go home show to the Hard to Kill pay-per-view.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a great look for Impact this week. I'm not going to try to make that hard. And I think you're right. I think maybe us talking about this, because we don't talk about Impact and New Japan ratings all that much. I do a little bit behind the paywall on Thursdays from time to time when something's interesting. Yeah, it might be a little surprising to some people. I see where you're coming from with that. And I do like your point that it does show the potential of the new look. We know the potential of the New Japan show on Access because when they had their first run on the channel and they weren't airing it and they were airing earlier in the night, they were doing 6-figure viewership regularly, according to reports, because they weren't subscribing to Nielsen yet. But that's what was, fed to some of the reporters in the newsletters and whatnot. And it's plausible because if this match did 81,000 viewers at 10 o'clock at night for a cold product, I totally buy that a hot New Japan airing at 8 o'clock was doing, 100,000 plus, 150,000 viewers a week. I totally buy it. So, we see what happens. It's rough because it does air at 10. And it's rough because it is Access, and you're going to be limited to how many people are going to watch you. But that show was effective for them at one time, and it can be again.
Yeah,
and
that's
a nice
my biggest
little
takeaway.
block.
That's my biggest takeaway. Is it's not done. It's not dead, and
no,
that might help. I mean, it will help Impact too. I think if New Japan on Access can get more people watching and maybe more people just tune into Impact, or like in general, those two can help each other in ways that they probably don't know they can help each other right now. But maybe this week is a wake-up call to see that they can get more eyeballs on Access. People have access. People have access to Access. It's just a matter of getting them something compelling to watch.
Yeah, well, we know that Impact is the highest rated show on Access. That's been reported, okay? So what this tells you is New Japan was almost the highest rated show on Access this week, and it was in the demo. It was the highest rated show on Access. It wasn't the most viewed, and it was tied for the most viewed show on Access, unless there was something else during the week that But typically, Impact is the most viewed show on the network.
Yeah, I can't imagine there was anything that shows that channel shows almost next to nothing that.
So my point is, this is a nice this is a nice little block for the network to have here. This is clearly when the most eyeballs are on their network. So. So obviously New Japan has some value to them, and it shows the power that Kenny Omega has to some degree, and that the buzz for that match really did equate to business, in relation to the network it's airing on and all that, because there's still people that will shit on it and say, it's 81,000 viewers, but you always have to put things into perspective and in relation to what, the world they live in. So I thought that was a really, really interesting number. So we got about a half hour. We didn't even talk about what we watched in terms of some of this wrestling we're going to talk about. So let's just do it on the air. I did not watch Hard to Kill. You did?
Yeah, I did. So I can run it down real quick if you want.
Okay, so let's start there then, and I will take you through it. So we'll start with the main event, which was Mickie James in her, I guess this was if she loses, she retires.
Correct.
So
yeah, she's doing this tour, her the final rodeo or whatever, last rodeo, I forget exactly the final or last. Someone will correct me if I'm wrong or whatever. So she's doing the thing where she started from the bottom, facing the lowest rung of knockouts all the way to the top here, and if she loses any of these matches, she's done. So every match is her potential career match, but this one more than ever felt to a lot of people going in like this might be it, because are they going to have her win the title, or is she going to retire here? And no, she won the title. Good little match. Good. Not great. Mickie is okay these days. Like she can still work pretty well, but and Grace, she's competent now. And Grace is somebody I'm indifferent to. Jordan Grace. Some people think that she's like incredible. Sometimes I see it, And sometimes I'm like, yeah, that was really good. And then sometimes I just don't. This was good, but not great. This was not the best match on the show. I guess I could put it that way. But it was good. It was good. It was definitely not a match that I would say skip or a disaster or whatever. It was good and it was emotional and the crowd was into it and they did a really good job of cutting. Mickey James' family was there. And Tara, the former Victoria, was there, and she was just, bawling her eyes out the whole time. So you're thinking, man, she can't keep it together. Like, this might be it for Mickey. Like, every time they're cutting to Tara, she's just bawling. Like, this is it. And it had some real good emotion to it. And the near falls were everybody kind of bid on the near falls. And when she won, it was a huge surprise to a lot of people. So did I like the bell to bell as much? Nah, I didn't think it was like an incredible bell to bell match, but it's a good scene and definitely well worth your time.
All right, so how was the Josh Alexander Bully Ray fake TLC gimmick here?
I want to say I hated this match, but I thought it was okay. It was now keep with the caveat of I never want to see people hit each other with shit ever again in wrestling. I'm so fucking sick of guys hitting each other with shit. And they came out here in Full Metal Mayhem and they hit each other with shit. But it was pretty good. It was very melodramatic, very melodramatic. You had Alexander's wife, the former Jade Chung, walk out, and she was like, no, leave him alone, and then she hit Bully Ray in the balls, and it was just like, oh my God. But ultimately, when it was done, I didn't hate it as much as I thought I was going to hate it. And ultimately, I think I enjoyed it more than I disliked it, which I did not think was going to be the case going in. So, and Josh Alexander takes some hellacious bumps in this match. He works his ass off. Bully did okay too. I will say Bully worked his ass off a bit, but Josh went above and beyond to try to make this match good. And that's what he's done now for a couple years. That guy works harder than almost anybody else in the world right now. So for anything, watch it for Josh Alexander's effort in the match. But he got the win. Bully didn't win.
Bully Ray never lacks effort.
No.
And the thing about Bully Ray is he has his own old school ideas about getting heat. And I know it's become a meme. The thing about Bully Ray is he's just like an annoying guy. But in terms of his performances, there's been many times where we've been like, that was like kind of good. But he
right.
does work hard.
I do that every time. Like he enters the ring and I'm like, motherfucker, here we go. Because I don't like the guy. I don't want to watch it. It's 2023. I don't want to watch Bully Ray. But when it's done, you're like, man, yeah, pretty good. Yeah, guy can still work.
Yeah, he doesn't. He's not like a carny guy who goes to these places and steals money. Like he puts effort in. I mean, he always puts effort in. And he tries really hard to get his matches and his angles and his opponents over and all those things with his promos and whatnot. And I know a lot of people don't like him, and for good reason. I know people in the business who don't like him, and, but
for good reason. For good reasons. Right. But I will say I get why people bring him in because Busted Open's got a big audience and he works his ass off, like you said, to promote those matches and promote those things. Like he'll talk about it in his show. He'll do social media stuff. He'll do videos. He'll do he works his ass off to try to get people to look at the prize. So I get it. I absolutely get it. And when the bell rings, he's not sitting there. He's no Tyrus. You know what I mean? He's not loafing around there. He's not, he will work. And this match, he worked. A lot of effort out of Bully here. So I got to applaud him for that.
Do you believe in Joe Hendry? Over your head.
The song's been stuck in my head for like 12 hours. I watched that match this morning and it's still stuck in my head. And then I lost it and now you just said it again and now it's back in my head again.
So about a month ago, somebody asked Dave Meltzer on Twitter, do you believe in Joe Hendry? And he answered yes. And I'm dying to know whether he got it.
He had no idea.
Get it.
He has no idea. Oh my God.
Dave, do you believe in Joe Hendry? He quote tweeted, of course. Yes. Yes, period. Like when your mom will text you.
Right.
Yes, period. Yeah, so do you believe in Joe Hendry?
I do. Good little match here with Moose. I liked it.
Is he still jacked to the gills? Joe Hendry?
A little less. Like he's still in healthy shape.
He got jacked?
Yes, he's not there anymore. He's not. There was that one period where you're like, holy shit, this guy looks like you could deflate him with a pin or whatever. He's not quite there. He's still big, but he's not there anymore. He's got a little bit of the belly fat. You know what I mean? It's calmed down a bit, but he's still in good shape.
Listen,
still in good shape.
Listen, a lot of us got fat during the pandemic. That man got on the gas and hit the gym. So
absolutely, yeah.
He was jacked there for a while. He's still doing his parody songs and everything. So Good for Joe Hendry.
It got way over, man. It got over in the crowd, and the song stuck in my head. And yeah, it shouldn't work, but it works. It's dorky, but sometimes wrestling can be dorky and be pretty good. So yeah, that was solid.
He's a unique act.
Yes,
he's one of those guys from the pandemic era of ROH who just kind of like selects the business.
What a weird era. That going back in 10 years and thinking about pandemic era Ring of Honor is going to be something else, man.
And their contracts all just ran out and the company sold and they all got like breaks. You know what I mean? Like, especially the Australian crew that came in. Remember they hired like 3 Australians and they were all getting their first American breaks. Wasn't it Adam Brooks and Slex the Business? And was it Adam Brooks or was it somebody else?
No, I think I'm pretty sure it was Brooks. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. And maybe Kellyanne? Maybe Kellyanne.
I forget if Kellyanne came over, but yeah, there was a woman, but I forget who it was.
Well, I don't know if she came over either, but one of them got a deal. I don't even know if they ever were able to come over. Now Slex did work a few matches, I think. And Kellyanne's not Australian though. Kellyanne, let's see, but she works a lot in Australia. Those Brits and Australians. It doesn't look like she ever worked ROH. Maybe someone in the chat room remembers. Maybe it was her and she just never got around to being booked. Slex for sure worked some ROH.
So I'm looking at the list here. I'm finding the articles here. It's Mark Haskins, Bandito, Amy Rose, Bateman, Brian Johnson, Sumi Sakai, Tracy Williams, The Bouncers, Jonathan Gresham, Jay Lethal, Roosh, Dragon Lee, Kenny King, and Sledge all recently re-signed with ROH, in addition to Slex the Business and Adam Brooks.
Oh, okay. So
that's when they went on their big, right before the pandemic was like, all right, we're reloading, baby. Marty Skrull's our booker, and we're reloading. And we came on the show and it was like, well, look out for Ring of Honor in 2020, man. They got,
that shit would have been fun.
Yes, yeah.
That shit would have been fun. I'm sorry. They had a whole new fresh roster. I was like watching their house shows. I was so into that new era of ROH. I was ready to get into it. And then, many things hit the fan.
Right. Insert things here happened. And
right. So, all right. Well, let's break down the rest of this. Was Eddie Edwards, John Isham any good?
I was indifferent to that. I saw a lot of people really, really liked it. I didn't really love it. I'm kind of over Gresham.
Someone in the chat says Kellyanne did get signed, but never had a chance to come over.
Okay.
And she wrote about it and all that. I had a feeling it was her. Did Session Moth Martina get one too? Yeah, I think Gerard Petrolio's right about that.
May have been it. Yeah.
Yeah, she got one too.
Okay. They were signing.
Adam Brooks,
they went nuts. They signed a ton of people.
ROH historian Sean Sedor says Adam Brooks never ended up wrestling a match either. So, but Slex did make it over and wrestled a few. I'm almost positive. What a weird time. Anything else on the show notable?
Okay, I will say the Knockouts #1 contendership 4-way, which I again went in thinking, oh God, here we go. Masha Slamovich, Deonna Purrazzo, Killer Kelly, and Taylor Wilde. They worked really well in this match. And it started out, the bell rang, and immediately 2 people went on the outside and 2 people fought in the ring. My classic, then just have a singles match between Masha Slamovich and Deonna Purrazzo if you're just going to have them face off in the ring together. But then from that point forward, for the next 6 minutes of this match, it didn't last long. It was only about 9 minutes. For the next 6 minutes or so, were 4 people were in the ring almost the entire time. And there was a bunch of ways to break up pins and dual submissions. And at one point, Deonna Purrazzo and Masha, I think it was, both had a Boston Crab at the same time on somebody. And we're thinking, well, shit, who's going to get the tap out? And the referee's thinking, I can't call a tap out here because I don't know who am I going to award the win. So there was a lot of really, really cool stuff and double submissions and just a lot of really cool. And I was, when it was done, I was like, bravo to them. Bravo to them for going out there and instead of having the tropey ass, boring 4-way match where 2 people are in the ring, another person comes in to break up a pinfall. Now it's a one-on-one between those 2 people. They went out there and they integrated all 4 people the entire time in this match. So kudos to them for sure. with that. And then I will say the Steve Macklin, Rich Swann Falls Count Anywhere in Atlanta match was a lot of guys hitting each other with shit match, but they did actually brawl into the streets. At one point, Raven, who was on commentary, said, I hope one of them gets hit by a car in Raven speak, in the most, Scott Levy, just the basic. But no, it was fun. Fun's the best way to describe it. They did a good job with the stipulation. Again, I'm sick of guys hitting each other with shit, but they worked their asses off in this. I would say ultimately a really, really good show. Like, I thought everything on the show was at least good. The Impact 4-way elimination match was probably the worst match on the show. And that's pretty good when it's the Motor City Machine Guns and Bullet Club and Heath and Rhino and the major players. That's probably the worst match on the entire show. And that was solid. Eddie Edwards and Jonathan Gresham was good. I'm kind of over Gresham at this point, but I thought it was an okay match for what it was. So I would say, am I canceling your plans to watch Hard to Kill? Probably not, but I think if you have some time and you're trying to keep up on Impact, this is not one of those ones where when I was done, and we've done that show before where we finished and I've been like, oh my God, we can't watch Impact anymore. This is terrible. I can't waste my time watching this. I didn't come away with that. I came away thinking, oh, okay, this is pretty good. They got a lot of good stuff, a lot of good talent. There's some good directions going on here. I'm not back in on Impact, but I'm not totally out on it like I usually am after some of these pay-per-views. And we did also have, in the middle of the show, Frankie Kazarian came out and announced that he had returned to Impact Wrestling on a multi-year contract. He claims that AEW did want to roll over his contract, but he declined and voiced concerns, frustrations, goals, and aspirations. So as of January 1st, he became a free agent and is now back in Impact, where, that it seems it fits him well. So I'm fine with that. But, that's healthy. That's good. Some people see it as, oh, what's going on in another, like, oh, AEW lost another. It's like, no, that's good. It's good that a guy can think, you know what? I'm not getting everything that I want in this company. I'm going to go to that company. That's good. That's a healthy wrestling ecosystem when you can do that. That is good. You want that. So, hey, if Frankie Kazarian's going to go to Impact, good. It gives them another guy. And good for Impact for being able to afford him. Good for Frankie to try to open up his, realize, hey, if I'm going to do something or if I'm going to make something happen, I got to leave and I got to go somewhere else. And he did. So good for him.
Guy wants to wrestle.
Yeah.
And
he said, I kept going to shows. I was at shows. They never used me. And it was like, all right, well, I'm wasting my time here then. And that's good. He
wants to wrestle. And the fact of the matter is, there was really no place for him in AEW anymore. And he had a pretty good run. I mean, they were the first tag team champions, Kazarian and Scorpio Sky. We've talked about this before. SCU was a pretty important act at the start of AEW. Mega over.
Dude, at All In, next to Cody, they were probably the next most over team on that entire show. I mean, they came out and people went, and early, that 2019 era of AEW, SCU was a huge, huge part of that.
Yeah. And then after that, though, he was directionless. He was doing that thing where he was like, remember when Yoshitatsu was the Bullet Club hunter?
Yes.
Right. So Kazarian was doing like the same thing. He'd come in with the hood and attack guys and everything. And that was really a going nowhere gimmick. And then since then, he's just kind of been a guy on the roster who you would forget was even there. He'd wrestle on YouTube a little. He'd pop up on TV every now and then to do a job, and guy just wants to wrestle and work. And in Impact, when he would do cameos there and pop in from time to time, he'd be put in decent spots and be given time to work, and he had an excellent match with, I forget who it was last year. Can't remember right now, but a legitimate notebook match, one of the best TV matches of the year for Impact. And, I guess he just figured he'd get more
against
work.
Josh? Oh, no, he faced Josh on Overdrive. Is that the match? Is that the match you're thinking of? It was at that Overdrive show. It wasn't a pay-per-view, I don't think. I believe it was just one of their specials.
Pretty sure the match I'm talking about was a TV match. Let me see if I could find it. But anyway, he had
a good match against Bailey, if I remember correctly, too, right?
It might have been Mike Bailey.
Yeah.
That might have been the one.
There's a lot of Mike Bailey matches in 2022, so it's hard to remember them all. But I do remember that because the Alexander one, I'm almost positive. I'm going to double check just to make sure. That was on Overdrive, so that probably is not what the one you're thinking.
That's
of.
not it. No.
Let me click.
I don't think I saw that.
Mike Bailey. Oh, Mike Bailey was Bound for Glory, so maybe it wasn't that either. I don't know.
Maybe not. Let me pull up his 2022 match guide gimmick. Oh, maybe it was Sabin. What was the Sabin match? Yes, that's the one.
It's
Chris Sabin match
yeah, that was in the summer, I want to say, right?
Yeah, June. Yeah. That's the one I'm referring to.
Oh, that was really good. Yeah, I do remember watching that match. That was solid as fuck. That was just two professional wrestlers having a great professional wrestling match.
That was a legitimately great match.
Yeah.
Like, I reviewed it behind the paywall and everything. It was really great. So
I'm seeing here, even Meltzer went 4.5 with that match. So there you go.
That was it was a legitimately, not a good match. It was a great match. It was a legitimately great match. And those are the kind of matches, and you mentioned the Josh Alexander and Mike Bailey match. Those are the kind of matches he's not getting in AEW if he stays. He's not being put in those spots to wrestle the top guys, the best workers in the company in 20-minute matches. He's just not getting that opportunity. And in Impact, he will get those chances. So in AEW, he's doing jobs to people. So, but, in the early days of AEW, it can't be understated how important that guy was. Now, you say he talked about WWE made a play for him. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so he did a PW Insider interview this week, and here was the quote that he said. He said, "In the spirit of transparency, I had great talks with the people at WWE. Those talks could not have been better, positive, more professional. I have nothing but great things to say about everybody in that organization, especially the people I spoke to and texted with. Ultimately, this was the best fit for me at this stage of my career and this point in my life. I have a great relationship with Scott D'Amore. I have a history there. A lot of my legacy is there at the stage. I was the best fit for Impact, and Impact was the best fit for me." So that's interesting. Didn't have to say that first part, but he did.
Maybe as a coach? I can't imagine they'd want him as a wrestler at his age.
I don't know if do you think that's just simply, hey, we can take another guy from AEW, so we're going to bring him in type of thing? And maybe he sensed that they didn't really want him. They just kind of wanted that other scalp to say, aha. Because I can't imagine wanting Frankie Kazarian either.
Maybe, again, he didn't want to be on the main event, meaning the TV show, not the position on the card, hamster wheel, and he, wrestling Cedric Alexander in 6-minute matches every week.
Right.
And he knows guy wants to wrestle. He's in his 40s. His career's winding down. He wants to perform, is the impression I get. And Impact is his best opportunity to do that. We talk about it all the time. I like when people jump back and forth. I think it's healthy, and I think it's good.
Yeah, people make it into like this globalized, oh no, what's going on with that? No, people, a healthy wrestling ecosystem, people look around and say, you know what? I have a better opportunity if I go there. And if there can pay you a reasonable amount that you can live, that's great. Then that's a healthy wrestling system. When you can leave place A and go to place B and still feed your family and pay your bills. That's the dream. And a lot of wrestling history, a lot of people listening to you, the last 20 years, that didn't exist. You know what I mean? That didn't, for all intents and purposes, exist. It exists now, and that's good. That's good, and that's healthy.
So Slex the business. Slex, the business.
Thank you,
Rich. He made it over in February of 2020.
Oh, did he get stranded here?
He was immediately put in a feud with Villain Enterprises. He lost to Flip Gordon in his debut. He lost in a 3-way to Marty Scurll in match number 2, which also involved Bandito of the Lifeblood.
Different. And then that sounds like 19 years ago. You know what I mean? It wasn't that long. It also it feels recent, but it also feels like it's from 19 years ago. Lifeblood, Juice Robinson, Bandito. Remember how excited we were about that? I think we did a show and let off with Lifeblood.
Rich, as I said, I was legitimately excited about this era of Ring of Honor.
I remember that show.
I watched all of these house shows on like Honor Club. I was into it.
Let me see if I can remember all of Lifeblood. It was Bandito, right?
Of course, yeah.
Jonathan Gresham.
No.
Shit.
Wait.
No. Right.
No, Jonathan Gresham.
Right. No, sorry. Give me a chance again. All right. Bandito, Juice Robinson.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Tracy Williams, right?
Yeah.
I'm out. I can't remember anybody else. It was two other weird dudes that you're like, oh yeah, Ring of Honor legends, those two guys, right?
Mark Haskins.
I would have never in a million years if you would have asked me. If you would have said if you said, hey, you know what, let's go 5 more hours, see if you can figure out the last guy in life, I would have never gotten to Mark Haskins, of course.
David Finlay.
Okay, I probably would have gotten to Finlay. Eventually I would have gotten the Juice.
You would have gotten to
Finlay. Yeah.
And I can't believe you missed Tennille Dashwood. I mean, that's the big one.
You're making that up.
No, she was in the group, yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, she'd stand there, She was having problems with her skin or something at that time. I don't think she was wrestling much.
Okay.
Anyway, his third and final Ring of Honor match, selects Calm of the Business, was Villain Enterprises, Brody King, Flip Gordon, and Marty Scurll defeating Slex, Calm of the Business, and the Briscoes in St. Charles, Missouri.
Of course.
So we come full circle. And that match was on February 29th, Leap Day, 2020, just days before Rudy Gobert went and touched a bunch of mics, and the world was on the verge of falling apart. And Slex, Calm of the Business has never been back. I feel bad for all those people who signed those deals. Now, I think they got paid throughout all of them, right? Didn't they at least get the money from Sinclair?
Yeah, we talked about that. It probably did them in because they were the best. They more than any other company kept everybody, paid everybody, didn't run shows, didn't try to get fans back as quick as possible, told everybody to stay home and get paid, and it ultimately killed the business and killed that company for all intents and purposes until, obviously with Tony Khan coming in. But yeah, I think all those guys got paid. Everybody, I'd imagine. They didn't release anybody until a couple years in, when it was just like, all right, this thing's never getting back on track. So
I have been reminded of the spring Slex, Calm of the Business Noah run, but he hasn't been back. Remember he was in Noah?
Yeah.
And he was beating the young boys in the opening matches, and I was like, oh, they might push him, right? Because he's winning. They're having him win Matt. They haven't brought him back.
Man, what's Slex doing? A lot of stops and starts in Slexy's career. That stinks. Well,
I don't know. Well, he's working for the reconfigured Melbourne Championship Wrestling, which we really don't watch that much anymore. Because he changed owners and the whole tone changed. And so he's kind of been off our radar a little there. But Slex, Calm of the Business. We got a couple minutes here. Move on.
I think we got about a half hour, I think, right?
Oh, we have that much?
I'm showing 2:37 on my time, so
all right, hey, listen. Fuck it. You're the boss.
Bonus half hour.
I did not watch the GLEAT, but I'm going to, because
you gotta watch the GLEAT.
I had many people tell me. Many people are saying.
People have been saying. Everyone's been saying.
Is it safe to imitate Trump without getting attached to him?
Ooh.
Many people are saying.
I think you can pull it off. I think actually, I think you can pull it off now.
Yeah, he's such a dork that
you might have to. You might have to pull it back just for a little bit once the election season gets going, just in case.
Yeah.
Because right now he's like,
listen.
Yeah.
One thing you cannot deny Trump: he's a poster. That's number one.
He will never stop posting. He'll die at this club.
And number two, I'm sorry, the guy's funny. Like, go ahead and cancel me. Donald Trump is funny. Like he has the best. Like they're kind of like dad-uncle burials, but they're funny dad/uncle burials when he buries people. Like the guy's a poster and he's funny. But anyway, many people are saying that I need to watch the Lindemann, what is it, Ishida?
Yes. Now here's the problem that I had is somebody said, hey, make sure you watch Lindemann versus Ishida. Don't miss it. It's Kaito Ishida, El Lindemann, obviously former Dragongate guys for the G-Rex title. That's the main title in GLEAT. So I said, okay, cool. They just said, hey, watch the match. So I went, okay, cool. I wasn't sure what show it was on or whatever, so I went and searched El Lindemann and scrolled down and found a Kaito Ishida match. I went, okay, cool. It was from GLEAT version 4 from 12/30/2022. So I watched that this morning, and it's great. It's a really, really good match. The guys beat the hell out of each other from the opening bell on. They worked their asses off. It's a really high-level match, about 20 minutes or so. And when it was done, I went to that person and said, hey, thank you. That was a hell of a match. From that, from 12:30 GLEAT, version 4. And I sent the link in there and said, anything else from the show that I should watch? And the person went, oh, shit, I didn't know they had another match, because he was trying to give me the 1/8/2023 GLEAT version 5 match that those guys had in the main event. So I ended up watching.
The one I have saved is from January 8th.
Okay. Honestly, watch both if you got the time. They're both about.
What's the date on the other one?
The other one is, it's GLEAT version 4, 12/30/2022.
Rich, you know my rule. 2022 is in the rear view. I can't do it.
That's fine. Okay, that's fair.
I can't go backwards. I'm not Marty McFly. I can't go backwards, Rich. I can't do it.
Okay, that's fine. Then you're good. They're both great.
I have closed the books on 2022.
It's over.
The books are closed, sir. Yes.
Because what if it was a notebook match? You'd have to open the notebook again. You can't do that.
I can't do that. It stresses me out.
It's absurd.
It stresses me out. I have closed the books on 2022. You have to draw a line, because if you don't, you keep going back, and I have to. It's just how my brain works.
That's fair. So don't.
We move forward, not behind.
We do. Yes. So that match is good. The one from 12:30 is really, really good. But yeah, the one from 1-8 I think is even better. So I will, since we're a little pressed for time, I will wait to discuss that match. You and I we'll watch it and maybe discuss it next week or something like that, or sometime in the future. But I think I got to become a GLEAT guy in 2023. Not a full-on GLEAT guy, but I think I got to keep an eye on this promotion, because people have been telling us over and over again, and we and rightfully so, we're pretty dubious about it, because it's like, all right, another one of these dumb promotions that's going to come up and fail and lose a shit ton of money, and that still might happen. That's not to say that won't happen, but there's a lot of talent on those shows. They're super accessible on YouTube. There's a lot of workers that I like, and I'll be honest, there's not a whole lot else in Japan that's really stoking the flames right now. So why not give them a chance? Now is the best time to say, you know what? Because as long as the scummers are in All Japan, I'm fucking hand waving that place. That place can go to hell for a little bit while those assholes are there screwing that up and people are turning on everybody and nothing makes any goddamn sense. I got no time for that. So All Japan, you're in the dumpster for a little bit. You're in the bin, as our Beans and Toast friends would say, for a while, until those scummers leave, and then maybe I'll consider it again. But for a while, they're gone. The Noah stuff is fine. We always obviously keep one eye on Noah. Dragongate, I like it a little bit more than you do, but I can't say that it's like exactly exciting me. So you know what? I'm not saying I'm a full GLEAT guy, but I'm going to keep an eye on the promotion and watch the high level stuff. And they got my guy Tamura, my old 0-1 guy, Hayato Tamura, my big beef boy.
Yeah.
They got him. There's a unit that's Gringo Loco, Hartley Jackson, and Utani, called Black Generation International. It was like,
okay, now hold on. Now you can't complain about scummers in All Japan and then put that over. You can't do it.
Gringo Loco, Hartley Jackson.
That's hypocrisy, sir.
Bulk Orchestra, Quiet Storm. Your boy, you love Quiet Storm. You've always tried to get me on the Quiet Storm bandwagon.
You want to talk
right?
about early ROH? And again, we're coming full circle. Look, I got no beef with Quiet Storm and his short little stubby arms. I got no problem with the guy. What's with his arms?
They're so small, and in this in Bulk Orchestra too. I mean, the name is what it is. Like, all the guys are big beef boys, so they all like do a move and then flex, and it's just so funny because he can't even. I don't know that man can touch his ears.
Quiet
he
Storm
flexes, and you're like, that he's still like 7 inches away from his ears. Like,
what an oddly proportioned man.
He has no neck. He has no, like, his torso. He's basically got a chest, a belly. Not really a torso. It's like his ass just starts like right below his belly button. You know what I mean? Like right there.
None of his parts make sense.
No, it's like they forget. Right?
Yeah. It's just but I love watching the guy wrestle.
He still works his ass off, man. Yeah,
he does, and he grunts. He's a big time grunter. He is in the pantheon of match grunting all stars with like Wild Bill Irwin and a few other guys. Like, he's right there. And he's gotten steady work in pro wrestling since like 2002. Quiet Storm. Remember he stopped off in like, where was it? 0-1 for like a year or something?
Oh, he always, yeah.
Maybe Collega. Where was it that 0-1 pot? Where Quiet
Storm. Yeah, he's everywhere, man. I think it was he had like an Osaka Pro run not that long ago. Is that the one you're thinking of? He was definitely in Collega for a little while. That guy's everywhere, man. You watch a scummy indie show, at some point he's going to be there. He did a little. I know he did. I think you're thinking of Collega.
It's the Collega run.
Yeah, he was in Collega for a little bit.
Yeah, like a legitimate run, not popping in. And that was Collega.
I know the second the pandemic happened and Big Japan was like, fuck it, we can't afford to not run.
Yeah, he did.
Of course, he popped up there. He's like, I can't afford to not work. Let's do this. Like,
he was a Big Japan regular and a Collega regular. These other places, I think he just did some shots.
Right. Noah was probably his I mean, he was in Noah for
Noah for years. Yeah, of course. But when they changed owners and directions, he like in one of their booker changes, he just fell out of favor, and that was it. And then he went to Big Japan, and then from there, he did Collega, like he was a Collega regular, and now he's a GLEAT guy. So the guy always has regular work.
He always does. He always finds a way.
Yeah. So, going back many years, and I guess I would presume he lives in Japan now because he's been working regularly in Japan since like for almost 20 years.
Oh, I would guess he's been there since the mid 2000s, right? Late 2000s at least the late 2000s.
But here's the other thing too. Weren't you already a GLEAT guy? I thought you were already a GLEAT guy.
I wasn't a GLEAT guy. I would try to like troll you and say we should become GLEAT guys, but I was never. I would check in on it. And I thought some of it was good, but most of it I didn't love. The problem is they still do a lot of the UWF rules shoot style stuff. I got no time for that shit.
Oh, that stinks. Yeah, that stinks.
So it makes it a little easier to watch because then you could just scroll. When you see like a score on the bottom, I'm just like, nope. But they do a good job of splitting it up. Like I know in that GLEAT version 5, there's like the first half of the show is all the shoot fight stuff. And then you get Kaz Hayashi and Luigi Primo, and you're like, all right, there we go. Now here's the wrestling end of the card. So yeah, there's you gotta work your way around. But no, the high level stuff is great, and there's a lot of good talent on these shows. Mishima's there obviously now. T-Hawk is there. All of the Strong Hearts are there. Kaito Ishida's there. Hartley Jackson, who I've liked some of his work. Tamura, who I like, my big beef boy, is there. Minoru Tanaka, who's still okay. And they've been getting a few other guys too, like Bushi's done a few shows here. Hanma's done a few shows here. Luigi Primo, as I said, has done a few shows. So there's some guys. I don't know if it's like great, but it's I don't know. I want to keep an eye on it at least throughout the rest of this year. While All Japan is not in its best place.
Yeah, I mean, that show is on my list. There's some shows on my list I didn't get to because, again, I had a crazy weekend. But the GLEAT I was told I had to watch. I want to watch that Rev Pro show that just happened last week with the what was the main event? It was Will Ospreay versus, was it Ospreay? Yeah, it was Ospreay. Hold on, I'll pull it up. Not Ospreay, Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay wrestled. Oh, Eddie Dennis. So there was a Rev Pro show.
Yeah. I got that recommended to me because Eddie's my guy. So
I'm gonna check that Rev Pro show out. The Big Japan New Year show finally got uploaded. I have that on my list. And somebody said I need to watch the Ganbare Pro show that's up, or at least the main event, because they uploaded the main event. But here's the best thing.
How about you watch that one for me and let me know? Because I'm not gonna go out of my way to watch that one. So
I think the main event got uploaded separately too. But here's the thing. I love when people recommend, when they tell me, oh, you got to watch this, because if it stinks, I get to give them shit. So I win either way. Either I see a good match or I get to bury someone for making me watch some fucking bullshit, which may happen. So I have a lot on my list. I'll probably have all that watched by next week. As far as the Dragongate, I went back and watched the two Dragongate Korakuens from the 11th and the 12th. So that was the unit disband, which was on the 11th or on the first show, whichever date it was. And then they did the title change with Shun Skywalker and Yoshioka. Did you see any of this?
I saw the unit disband match. I did not yet watch the Shun Skywalker Yoshioka match, though.
All right, well, I'll start with that. So Skywalker wins the title. He really dominated most of the match. Like okay. So he was like the sole survivor in the unit disband, right? Skywalker. So he got the big push the day before, leading into this title match against Yuki Yoshioka.
Right.
And it was weird to me because he kind of took a lot of the title match. And the match was almost a half hour long, but Yoshioka didn't get a ton. And they didn't have like the typical hot, you go, I go closing stretch. Shun just beat him. And the match was dull as dirt. I mean, I'm not a big Yuka Yoshioka guy to begin with, but this to me was, but I've given him credit when he's had good, title matches. I think the last one we watched, I said I liked. This was boring as shit. Was 30 minutes of staring at my fucking watch and having to put my phone across the room because I was too compelled to keep looking at my phone. I wasn't paying attention to the match. Didn't like it. Thought it was boring, but I'm glad the title's off Yoshioka because I don't like him. Everybody knows I don't like him. I just think the guy is very boring. I think he's like, all right, so when like Yamato would be the Dreamgate champion and Yamato was never to me a great Dreamgate
right. He'd be awesome and then to win that title and then feel like he has to have boring 25-minute main event style matches, and that's not where he excelled.
Yuki Yoshioka to me is like a more boring Yamato. I don't like the guy. I just can't get into him. So I'm glad they put the title back on Shun. But Shun is doing this like psychopath gimmick. And he really turned it up a notch here too. He was doing like this weird maniacal laughter / mating call dick gimmick during this match, where he just kept making these weird sounds and, ho lunch, putting it over on commentary. And I don't know. I'm trying. I watched these two Corkins. I am not feeling this company. I just cannot get into it. I took people's advice and decided to watch the Corkins and watch anything that drops and not just the big shows. Because I agree, sometimes big show atmosphere can be a little dry and not a proper representative of what the company is. And there was some good stuff on these Corkins. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that there wasn't some fun, entertaining stuff, but that title change did absolutely nothing for me. If Yoshioka just went away, let me tell you something, wouldn't mind at all. Wouldn't miss that guy in the least. If he decided to get a job as an accountant and never wrestle again, I'm just not into him. And the unit disband, it was a fun little match, but and you had warned me that it wasn't anything great. I think it was it you who told me that it wasn't anything?
Yeah, I told you because I was trying to recommend you. You were like, I don't know if it was last week before the show, and you were like, I don't know if I have time to watch it. And I was like, you know what, I do. I'll watch it. I'll let you know. And I was like, Joe, I don't know. You haven't loved Dragongate lately. I don't think you're gonna love this one. And yeah, you probably came away with it a lot like I did. It was interesting because it was frenetic and guys were getting eliminated quickly. It just didn't have the same gravitas that a lot of those unit disband matches have. It just felt like it felt very gimmicky and quick and fast. And when it was done, I was just kind of like, all right. I mean, the end result was let's get Shun Skywalker over. But usually those unit disband matches are like, oh my God, here we go. It's just brimming with emotion and stakes and energy, and it just didn't have that. And it was fine. It was okay. But like, yeah, if you didn't watch, if you're not invested in current Dragongate and you just plopped in because you heard it was a units disband match, like you're probably coming away with like, what's the deal here? I don't understand.
It's Z-Brats and high end. We're not talking Blood Generation and Typhoon.
For sure. I get it. I know. Yeah. And I guess they understood that they didn't need to have that sort of style of because nobody really cares that much about these units. So they got in, they got out. So yeah, that's got to be I don't know if maybe the Open the Voice Gate guys talked about it or ran the numbers, but that feels like that's got to be the quickest unit disband match ever. I think it was over in 14 minutes.
I didn't hate it. I thought it was fun and it told a nice little story. Kagetora comes back as a big surprise, and all that. So look, and he got a bunch of eliminations, I think, in the middle portion of the match. So it was fun. Look, these shows weren't bad. I'm waiting for Dragongate to reel me in the way it has in the past, and I'm still waiting. So, and maybe with a new champion, but I kind of been down on Shun too, to be honest. Like, I used to love that guy, and he's still obviously a great wrestler. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't know. There's just a lot going on in this company that doesn't connect with me. So I'm going to be the Debbie Downer with Dragongate once again, with my little mini review of those Corkins. Tajiri officially announced he's going to Kyushu Pro.
Kyushu Pro, yeah.
I think I have.
Sorry, go ahead.
Awkward. We're waiting for the other guy to talk.
Connection issues. Go ahead. Take the floor. It's yours.
All I was going to say is Tajiri announced he signed with Kyushu Pro, and that I think somebody sent me a show, but I'm not sure because it's all in Japanese and I don't know what show it is. So I may or may not watch a Kyushu Pro show.
There you go. I think
sometime this week.
I thought the interesting thing about the Kyushu Pro announcement was them saying, hey, if you're a young American wrestler, a young overseas wrestler, like, contact us. Let's talk. Let's do this. I thought that was interesting. I don't know why I thought, but it just kind of was like, oh, okay. Oh, all right. Like, I guess they're trying to expand. And we've heard some people say that this is an actual effort that they're going to make to try to expand and get people from overseas and get, who knows? I mean, who the hell knows what they're actually going to do and if they're actually going to see through that. But, Tajiri is there and in Kyushu Pro. I now have to. I'll admit that I've never watched a Kyushu Pro match, but I'm going to follow them on all my various networks, and we'll see. I'm not going to say we're a Kyushu Pro show just yet, but got to keep one eye on the Kyushu now, right? Not really. No, you probably don't, but.
One thing about Tajiri is he's a pretty good talent scout.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and that seems like what they're doing with this whole thing is like them saying, "Come on, if you're an American or overseas wrestler, we'll get you a visa. We'll work. We'll train you. Whatever." Honestly, if Tajiri's the guy, I'll go. If I've got nothing going on, man, I'll go train with Tajiri for a little bit. Why not? Right?
So I tried to log out and log back in, and we're still on like a time delay. Wrap this show up, Rich, because I cannot communicate with you like this. We're trying our best, but like I'm talking and I'm stopping talking, and then you don't hear me talk until like 4 seconds later, and then so wrap it up, Rich.
All right, so we're done here. That is it for the flagship. We're almost out of time anyway, so that works out perfectly. Flagship, patreon.com/voices of wrestling. Plenty of great stuff up there for you right now. I got the piece that I wrote about Jay Briscoe. You got the Thursday Diner reviews from Joe, including a very long discussion about Jay Briscoe and his life and all that sort of stuff. That is in there. In addition to that, we also have some stuff that's not depressing. We have the match of the week this week, Hulk Hogan versus Rene Goulet. From Maple Leaf Wrestling. That's there. I'm currently working my way through some Royal Rumbles as well in the Rumble Rewind series that I like to do every single January. So we got that. Finishing up the Flagship Awards. You got Executive of the Year, Tag Team of the Year, some other stuff up there right now. But plenty of content available on the $5 tier and the $10 tier. Again, at flagshippatreon.com and patreon.com/voices of wrestling. Also, our Discord, voicesofwrestling.com/Discord. If you want to join the conversation, you can do so there. Stay tuned for a lot of Match of the Year content coming up in the next week as well. Polls, the ballot will close this Sunday. So if you are a wrestling media member, if you're a podcaster, a reporter, a writer, a vlogger, whatever, if you're in the wrestling media, and no, Twitter doesn't count. Bantering on Twitter does not count. Bantering on Reddit does not count. You must be a part of some sort of website or have your own blog or have your own podcast or have your own YouTube channel or whatever. But if you are one of those, contact us either on Twitter, on Discord, however you want to do it. Also, Match of the Year, or I should say MOTY at voicesofwrestling.com, the email address, MOTY at voicesofwrestling.com. Say, hey, I want a ballot. Here's what I do. Here's my website, and I will get one to you. But the ballots will close on Sunday night. So make sure if you are listening to this, get it to me as soon as possible, and I can send you a ballot. But after Sunday, no new ballots, no new votes come in. We lock it down, and we come up with the results. But if you're a wrestling media member and you're listening to this and you have not voted yet, that is how you do so. So just contact us any way you can, and we will get you a ballot as soon as possible and hopefully get you involved in the voting this year. We are, I think, going to break our record yet again of voters. We do it pretty much every single year, and we are well on our pace to get there again this year. So we appreciate that. And as I said, a lot of content coming up next week related to Match of the Year. But that is it for us. That is Joe. I am Rich. We will talk to you next time on the Flagship Podcast. Take care.